When the most feared Alpha King in the realm fell, not to an enemy's blade, but to poison slipped into his wine, the woman who saved him became the one he'd destroy. Tonight, I'm telling you the story of Lyora Hale, a servant who dared to show mercy to a monster, and how that single act of kindness cost her everything, until the truth she'd hidden for years tore his kingdom apart. Stay until the end to see how a powerless woman brought the most ruthless king to his knees. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, and hit that like button if you believe the truth always finds its way to light. The wine had been tampered with. Ronan Varric knew it the moment the room started tilting, the ornate chandeliers of the great hall bleeding into streaks of gold and shadow. His fingers, those same fingers that had crushed rebellions and signed death warrants without hesitation, couldn't grip his goblet. It slipped from his hand, the crystal shattering against stone, red wine pooling like spilled blood. Around him, the diplomatic feast continued. Laughter, music, the clink of silverware against porcelain. But Ronan heard it all through water, distant and distorted. His vision narrowed to a tunnel, and at the end of it sat Lord Thaddeus Crane, the visiting dignitary from the Southern Territories, smiling. "Your Majesty appears unwell," Thaddeus said, his voice dripping false concern. "Perhaps the northern climate doesn't agree with quiet." The word came out slurred, wrong. Ronan tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't obey. The Alpha King of Arkenfell, the man who'd never shown weakness, swayed like a drunk. The hall fell silent. Every eye turned toward the high table. Ronan's second-in-command, Commander Garrett, moved first, hand on his sword. "My lord! Poisoned!" Ronan forced the word out through gritted teeth. His wolf, the primal force that had dominated every challenge since his first shift at 13, thrashed inside him, panicked and feral. For the first time in 15 years, Ronan couldn't control it. Heat flooded his body. His skin felt too tight. The shift began without his permission, bones cracking, reforming. "Get him out!" Garrett's voice cut through the chaos. "Now, before he—" Ronan didn't hear the rest. The world went black at the edges, red at the center. His wolf screamed for release, for blood, for anything to stop the fire racing through his veins. This wasn't ordinary poison. This was something designed specifically for alphas, something that stripped away control and left only the beast. Hands grabbed at him, too many hands. He lashed out, heard someone cry out in pain. The diplomatic feast dissolved into shouting, chairs scraping, guards rushing forward. Ronan stumbled, crashed against a pillar. His claws, half emerged, caught between human and wolf, gouged stone. "Let me through." The voice was quiet, almost lost in the commotion. Female. Unfamiliar. Ronan tried to focus, but his vision kept doubling. A figure in servant's gray moved through the chaos with surprising calm, stepping around the guards who'd formed a protective circle around their failing king. "You'll kill him if you drag him through the castle like this," the woman said, and there was no fear in her voice, just certainty. "The shift will tear him apart if he fights it, and he's fighting it. I can see it from here." "Stand back," Garrett commanded. "This is not—" "Look at his eyes." She didn't move. "He's not fully shifted, but he's not human either. The poison is blocking the transition. If you force him to move, to fight, his body won't survive the strain." Ronan couldn't process the words, but some distant part of him, the part still capable of tactical thought, recognized truth when he heard it. His wolf was caught, suspended between forms, tearing him apart from the inside. "Who are you?" Garrett demanded. "Someone who's seen this before." The woman stepped closer, and Ronan caught a scent, lavender, and something earthy, grounding. "Let me help him, or watch him die. Your choice, Commander." Silence. Then Garrett stepped aside. She knelt beside Ronan, and for a moment their eyes met. Hers were gray, the color of winter storms, and completely unafraid. She should have been terrified. Everyone feared the Alpha King, but this woman looked at him like he was simply a man in pain. "Can you hear me?" she asked quietly. Ronan managed a fractional nod. His claws dug into the stone floor, creating small fissures. "The poison is nightshade extract, mixed with wolfsbane and something else. Probably iron root, based on how you're reacting. It's forcing your wolf forward, but blocking the full shift. You need to stop fighting it." "Can't," Ronan ground out. Speaking felt like swallowing glass. "Lose control." "You've already lost control," she said bluntly. "Now you need to surrender to it, let the shift complete, then pull back. Fighting is what's killing you." Every instinct Ronan possessed screamed against her words. Surrender meant weakness. Surrender meant death in a kingdom where strength was the only currency that mattered. He'd built his rule on absolute dominance, on never showing vulnerability. Your Majesty. Her hand, small, calloused from work, touched his arm, somehow finding skin instead of fur. The contact sent a shock through him, cutting through the poison's haze. You're dying, right now, in front of everyone who's ever feared you. Is that how you want to be remembered? The logic cut through his pride. She was right. He could feel his heartbeat stuttering, his lungs struggling. The shift had to complete, or he'd tear apart. Ronan closed his eyes and stopped fighting. The transformation hit like a lightning strike. Bones snapped and reformed, muscle tore and rebuilt. His clothes shredded as his body expanded, wolf surging to the surface in a wave of fur and fury. For a moment, the pain was so absolute that Ronan lost himself entirely. Easy, you're through the worst of it. The woman's voice, still calm, anchored him. Ronan opened his eyes, wolf's eyes now, seeing the world in sharper detail, and found her still kneeling beside him, one hand resting lightly on his massive shoulder. She should have run. His wolf should have attacked. Instead, something in her scent, her steady presence, soothed the beast. Good, she murmured. Now shift back. Slowly. Don't fight it this time. Guide it. It took every ounce of will Ronan possessed. The poison was still in his system, still burning, but the worst had passed. The shift reversed, gradual and agonizing, until he was human again, naked, sweating, sprawled on the cold stone floor of his own great hall. Someone threw a cloak over him. Garrett, probably. The woman stood, stepped back, became just another gray-clad servant in a room full of witnesses to the Alpha King's greatest humiliation. Take him to his chambers, she said to Garrett. He needs water, lots of it, and something to counteract the iron root. Goat's milk with crushed mint will help. Don't give him wine or anything fermented. It'll react with what's left of the poison. Garrett stared at her. Who in the hell are you? Nobody important? She turned to leave. Wait. Ronan's voice was raw, barely functional, but it stopped her. He struggled to his elbows, the cloak sliding off one shoulder. Name. She hesitated, then turned back. Lyora Hale, Your Majesty. You saved my life. I kept you from dying in public, she corrected. There's a difference. Her gray eyes met his, steady and calm. You should have your food taster executed, by the way. Either he's incompetent or he's complicit. Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd of servants who'd clustered near the walls, watching their king's breakdown with wide eyes. Ronan let Garrett and two other guards haul him to his feet, half carrying him toward the private corridors. Behind them, the great hall erupted in whispered speculation. Lord Thaddeus was nowhere to be seen, probably fled the moment the poison took effect, which confirmed his involvement as clearly as a signed confession. The night blurred after that. Ronan remembered being deposited in his chambers, remembered the physicians fussing, remembered forcing down the foul-tasting mixture of goat's milk and mint that actually did help settle the fire in his veins. But mostly he remembered those gray eyes, looking at him without fear. Nobody looked at the Alpha King without fear. He fell into unconsciousness sometime before dawn, his last coherent thought, a name. Lyora Hale. Morning came too bright, too early. Ronan woke to find Commander Garrett standing at the foot of his bed, arms crossed, expression grim. You look terrible, Garrett said. I was poisoned. Ronan sat up, testing his body. Everything ached, but he was functional. Where's Thaddeus? Gone. Fled south before midnight. I've sent riders, but he had a head start. Not good enough. Ronan swung his legs out of bed, reaching for clothes. I want him found. I want everyone who helped him found. And I want them brought back alive so I can... There's another problem, Garrett interrupted. Something in his tone made Ronan pause. What problem? The servant girl, Lyora Hale. Garrett's jaw tightened. Lady Morgana is demanding she be arrested. Ronan went very still. Lady Morgana Fairmont, one of the most influential noblewomen in Arkenfell, wasn't someone who made demands lightly. On what grounds? She claims the girl is responsible for the poisoning. Says she saw Lyora near the wine before dinner service, acting suspiciously. That's absurd. Ronan stood, anger cutting through the lingering poison fog. She saved my life. Or she orchestrated the entire thing to gain your trust. Garrett held up a hand before Ronan could explode. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm telling you what Lady Morgana is spreading through the court, and she's not alone. Half the nobles are whispering about it. Why would a nobody servant know so much about poisons? How did she know exactly how to help you when the physician was useless? Ronan's hands clenched into fists. Because she's clearly smarter than my physician. Maybe. Garrett met his eyes steadily. But you can't ignore this, Ronan. Not if you want to maintain control. The court is already talking about how you lost yourself in front of everyone. If you're seen protecting some random girl over the nobility, I don't care what the court thinks. You should, Garrett's voice hardened. You're an alpha king in a frontier kingdom where wolves eat the weak. You showed weakness last night, real weakness, for the first time since you took the throne. If you don't reassert dominance now, someone will try to take advantage. Ronan wanted to argue, but tactical sense warred with instinct. Garrett was right. The kingdom of Arkenfell wasn't built on justice or fairness. It was built on strength, and he'd just shown the entire nobility that he could be brought down. What does Morgana want? He asked finally. A public trial. To root out all conspirators involved in the poisoning plot. Garrett's expression was carefully neutral. She's positioning herself as your loyal defender, demanding accountability. She wants a scapegoat. She wants to remind everyone that she has power here, and that you owe her for supporting you. Politics. Ronan hated politics. Give him a battlefield any day. At least there, enemies were honest about trying to kill you. Where's the girl now? The servant quarters, under guard, though I haven't officially arrested her, yet. Ronan's wolf stirred uneasily. Something about this felt wrong. Leora Hale hadn't smelled like a threat. She'd smelled like someone who'd worked with her hands, someone practical and grounded, not a noble's conspirator. But he'd been wrong before. 15 years ago, he'd trusted the wrong woman, and it had nearly cost him his throne. Since then, he'd built walls higher than any fortress, trusted no one beyond his inner circle, and survived through suspicion rather than faith. Bring her to my study, Ronan said finally, quietly, before Morgana can turn this into a public spectacle. Garrett nodded and left. Ronan dressed in silence, his mind already working through the angles. If Leora was innocent, protecting her would make him look weak, a king swayed by sentiment over evidence. If she was guilty, executing her would satisfy the court, but leave him wondering why she'd bothered saving him at all. Either way, he was cornered. He'd just finished pulling on his boots when a knock came at his door. Too soon for Garrett to have returned with Leora. Ronan crossed the room and yanked it open. Lady Morgana Fairmont stood in the corridor, perfectly composed in a gown of midnight blue, her dark hair arranged in an elaborate style that probably took her maid an hour to achieve. She was beautiful in the way that venomous snakes were beautiful, striking and deadly. Your Majesty. She dipped into a curtsy that managed to be both respectful and mocking. I hope I'm not disturbing you. You are, Ronan said flatly. Then I'll be brief. She smiled, sharp as a blade. I've come to offer my support during this difficult time. The attempt on your life was shocking, and I want you to know that House Fairmont stands ready to help identify all conspirators. Generous of you. I thought so. Her eyes, ice blue and calculating, studied his face. I understand you've requested to see the servant girl privately. Might I counsel against that? The court is already buzzing with speculation about her involvement. A private audience might give the wrong impression. I don't answer to court gossip. Of course not. You're the Alpha King. Morgana's smile didn't waver. But even kings must be mindful of appearances. The girl was seen near the wine. She conveniently knew how to treat a very specific poison. And she's a nobody. No family, no connections, no reason for you to have ever noticed her before. It raises questions. She saved my life. Did she? Or did she save her own plan from failing? Morgana stepped closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Think about it, Your Majesty. What better way to gain a king's trust than to poison him just enough to need saving, then position yourself as the hero? Ronan's wolf growled low in his chest. You're accusing her without evidence. I'm protecting you. Someone has to. Morgana's hand came to rest lightly on his arm, possessive and presumptuous. You're not yourself yet. The poison is still affecting your judgment. Let me handle this unpleasantness. I'll make sure the girl receives a fair trial. Get your hand off me. The words came out colder than winter steel. Morgana's smile froze, then carefully widened as she withdrew her hand. Of course, Your Majesty. Forgive the familiarity. She took a step back. I only want what's best for Arkenfell. What's best for Arkenfell is for its nobles to remember their place, Ronan said quietly. I'll investigate the poisoning. I'll question whoever I choose to question, and I'll decide what happens next. Not you, not the court. Me. Morgana's eyes flashed, but her expression remained perfectly pleasant. As you wish. I simply hope you won't let sentiment cloud your judgment. We've all heard the rumors about what happened when you were young, how you trusted too easily and nearly lost everything. It would be tragic if history repeated itself. The reference to his past, to the biggest mistake of his life, landed like a physical blow. Ronan's hands clenched, claws starting to emerge. Leave, he said, before I forget you're a guest in my castle. Morgana curtsied again, deeper this time, and retreated down the corridor with measured grace. But Ronan caught the satisfaction in her scent, the predatory pleasure of someone who'd drawn blood. She was right about one thing. He had trusted the wrong woman once before, and it had nearly destroyed him. He was still standing in the doorway, wrestling with old memories, when Garrett returned with Lyora Hale. She looked different in daylight, younger than he'd thought, maybe 25. Though hard living had put shadows under her eyes that aged her. Her gray servant's dress was clean but worn, patched at the elbows. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple braid. She walked between two guards with her chin up, shoulders straight, not cowering but not defiant either, just present. Leave us, Ronan told the guards. Garrett hesitated. Your Majesty. Out. The guards exchanged glances but obeyed, closing the study door behind them. Ronan gestured Lyora toward a chair near his desk, but she shook her head. I'd rather stand, if it's all the same. Suit yourself. Ronan leaned against his desk, studying her. You know why you're here? Lady Morgana thinks I poisoned you. Lyora's voice was steady. She's wrong, but I doubt that matters much. Why would she be wrong? Because if I'd wanted you dead, you'd be dead. She met his eyes directly. Nightshade extract is tricky. Too much, and you die instantly. Too little, and you just get sick. But mix it properly with wolfsbane and ironroot, calibrated for an alpha's metabolism? That's an assassination, not a warning. Whoever poisoned you wanted you vulnerable, not dead. At least not immediately. And how do you know so much about poisons? My mother was a healer before she died. I learned from her. Lyora's jaw tightened. Not that I expect you to believe me. Rich people never believe poor people when money's on the line. Watch your tone. Or what? You'll execute me? She laughed, bitter and sharp. Lady Morgana's already decided I'm guilty. The court wants someone to blame. You need to look strong after last night. I'm convenient. Ronan's wolf stirred, interested despite itself. Most people groveled in front of him. This woman spoke to him like an equal, like someone with nothing left to lose. If you think I've already decided to kill you, he said slowly, why aren't you begging for mercy? Would it work? No. Then why waste my breath? Lyora crossed her arms. Look, Your Majesty, I don't care about politics. I helped you because you were dying and I had the knowledge to stop it, that's all. I didn't expect gratitude and I'm not asking for protection. But I'm also not going to stand here and pretend I'm sorry for saving your life. Silence stretched between them. Ronan found himself caught between grudging respect and deep suspicion. She was either the bravest person he'd ever met or the stupidest. Or she was a brilliant actress playing a part designed to appeal to his cynicism. Morgana says you were seen near the wine before dinner. I was near everything before dinner. I'm a servant. We set the tables, pour the wine, light the candles. Being near the wine isn't evidence, it's my job. Then who did poison me? Lord Thaddeus, obviously, or someone working for him. Lyora's eyes narrowed. You felt it start after the second toast, right? When he insisted everyone drink to lasting alliance between North and South. He made sure you drank. She was right. Ronan had felt the first symptoms right after that toast. That's circumstantial. So is being near the wine. Lyora's voice rose slightly, frustration cracking through her calm. But he fled in the middle of the night, and I'm still here. Doesn't that tell you something? It did. But Ronan had learned long ago not to trust his instincts about women. The last time he'd trusted one, she'd betrayed him in the worst possible way, and he'd spent 15 years rebuilding what she'd nearly destroyed. "I can't just let you go," he said, finally. "The court expects someone to answer for this. Then execute me and be done with it." Leora's hands dropped to her sides, resigned. "I won't beg. Just make it quick." "I'm not going to execute you." "Then what?" "Good question." Ronan pushed off the desk, pacing to the window. Outside, Arkenfell sprawled across the valley, a fortress kingdom carved from stone and ice, held together by strength and fear. His kingdom, his responsibility, and his prison. "You'll stay in the castle," he said, making the decision as he spoke. "Under supervision. Not imprisoned, but not free to leave. If you're innocent, time will prove it. If you're guilty, you'll slip up eventually." "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair." Ronan turned back to face her. "But it's better than what Morgana wants, which is your head on a spike outside the gates." Leora's expression was unreadable. "And what do you want, Your Majesty?" "The truth." "I already gave it to you. You just don't trust it." She was right about that too. Ronan didn't trust easily, didn't trust at all, really, beyond Garrett and a handful of others who'd proven themselves in blood. Trusting this woman, this stranger who'd appeared at his lowest moment, felt like stepping into a trap. But killing her felt worse. "You'll work in the kitchens," he said abruptly. "Under supervision. You don't go anywhere alone. You don't speak to anyone about last night. And if I find out you've been conspiring—" "I understand." Leora's shoulders slumped slightly, the first sign of weakness she'd shown. "Thank you for not killing me. I think." "Don't thank me yet." Ronan moved to the door, yanked it open. The guard snapped to attention. "Take her to the kitchens. Tell the head cook she's assigned there until further notice, and make sure someone's watching her at all times." The guards nodded, motioning for Leora to follow. She moved toward the door, then paused beside Ronan. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I hope you find whoever actually poisoned you. They're still here, Your Majesty, still planning, and next time I won't be around to save you." Then she was gone, escorted down the corridor by armed guards. Ronan stood alone in his study, staring at nothing, his wolf pacing restlessly beneath his skin. Something about this entire situation felt wrong. Morgana was too eager to blame Leora. Thaddeus had fled too quickly, too obviously. And Leora herself. The door opened without warning. Garrett stepped in, his expression dark. "The physician just finished his analysis of your wine cup," he said. "It wasn't nightshade extract." Ronan went still. "What?" "It was hemlock mixed with silver ash. Basic poison, designed to kill quickly. Nothing like what the girl described." Garrett moved closer, lowering his voice. "Which means either she's wrong about what poisoned you, or there were two separate attempts on my life last night," Ronan finished, cold spreading through his chest. "One that failed, and one that she stopped." They stared at each other. "If that's true," Garrett said slowly, "then someone in this castle tried to poison you with hemlock. It didn't work fast enough, and Leora actually did save you from something worse. But who?" "Morgana." The name fell from Ronan's lips like a curse. "She's been positioning herself to marry me for years. If I died without an heir, she'd have a claim through her late husband's bloodline. But if I survived just barely, indebted to her, she'd have leverage." Garrett's hand moved to his sword. "But that's a dangerous accusation without proof." "So we get proof." Ronan's mind was already racing ahead, tactical instincts overriding emotion. Quietly, "If Morgana thinks I suspect her, she'll move against me, or against Leora." "Why would she move against the girl?" "Because Leora's the only witness who knows the poison was more complex than hemlock. The only one who could prove there were two separate attempts." Ronan headed for the door. "Double the guard on the kitchens. I want eyes on Leora at all times, if anyone tries to hurt her." He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Garrett nodded and left to arrange the guards. Ronan stood alone again, but this time his isolation felt different, dangerous. For 15 years he'd trusted no one, relied on no one, needed no one. It had kept him alive but left him hollow, ruling a kingdom from behind walls so high even he couldn't see over them anymore. And now a servant girl with gray eyes and no fear had walked into his life and possibly saved it, and he had no idea whether to protect her or destroy her. Outside his window, the sun climbed higher over Arkenfell, indifferent to the games of kings and nobles. Somewhere in the castle, Leora Hale scrubbed pots or peeled vegetables, probably assuming the Alpha King had already forgotten about her. She was wrong. Ronan pressed his palm against the cold window glass and made himself a promise. He would find out the truth about that night. All of it. Who poisoned him, why, and what role, if any, Leora Hale had actually played. And if she was innocent, if she'd truly saved him for no reason beyond human decency, then he'd owe her a debt he had no idea how to repay. If she was guilty, he'd kill her himself. Either way, the game had just begun. And in Arkenfell, games always ended in blood. 3 days in the kitchens taught Leora that being under the Alpha King's protection was worse than being accused outright. The other servants wouldn't look at her, wouldn't speak to her except when absolutely necessary. She scrubbed pots until her hands bled, hauled water from the well until her back screamed, and endured the whispers that followed her like smoke. Poisoner. Whore who thinks she can seduce a king. Should have been hanged already. The head cook, a massive woman named Bertrice with arms like tree trunks, assigned Leora the worst tasks and watched her with cold suspicion. Every plate Leora touched was inspected 3 times. Every ingredient she handled was tested by someone else first. The guard stationed near the kitchen entrance tracked her every movement, hands never far from their weapons. She was safer than she'd been in years and more alone than ever. On the 4th morning, Leora was elbow-deep in a basin of freezing dishwater when she felt eyes on her. Not the usual hostile stares. Something different. She looked up. A boy stood in the doorway. Maybe 8 years old, dressed in clothes too fine for a servant but too plain for nobility. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles, and he watched her with the intense curiosity of a child who hadn't yet learned to hide his thoughts. "You're the one who saved the king," he said. The kitchen went silent. Bertrice's cleaver stopped mid-chop. Leora set down the pot she'd been scrubbing, choosing her words carefully. "I helped him, that's all. My tutor says you poisoned him and then pretended to cure him so he'd trust you. Your tutor is wrong." The boy tilted his head, considering. "Are you scared?" "Of what?" "Being executed. Mother says everyone who crosses Lady Morgana gets executed eventually." Mother. Which meant this child belonged to someone with status, someone who moved in circles where Lady Morgana's power mattered. Leora glanced at the guards, but they seemed content to watch rather than intervene. "I'm not scared of dying," Leora said, which was mostly true. "I'm scared of dying for something I didn't do." "That's stupid. Dead is dead." "Maybe." Leora almost smiled despite herself. "What's your name?" "I'm not supposed to talk to you." The boy stepped closer anyway, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "But I'm Kael. My mother works in the castle. She says you're dangerous." "Then why are you talking to me?" "Because dangerous people are more interesting than boring people." Kael's eyes, gray, startlingly familiar, met hers with absolute conviction. "And I don't think you're bad. Bad people don't have sad eyes like yours." Something in Leora's chest cracked. She'd spent 3 days being treated like poison incarnate, and this random child had seen her more clearly in 30 seconds than anyone else in the castle. "You should go," she said quietly, "before someone blames you for talking to me." "I'm not scared of—" "Kael!" A woman's voice, sharp with panic, cut across the kitchen. "Get away from her. Now!" A servant rushed in, grabbed the boy by his arm, and hauled him backward. She was young, maybe Leora's age, with the kind of exhausted beauty that came from hard work and little sleep. Her hands shook as she positioned herself between Kael and Leora like a human shield. "I'm sorry," the woman stammered, addressing the guards more than Leora. "He doesn't understand. He's just a child. Please don't—" "Relax," one of the guards said, bored. "The king said watch her, not execute everyone who looks at her." The woman clutched Kael tighter and fled. Bertrice's cleaver resumed its rhythm. The kitchen returned to its usual hostile silence, and Leora went back to scrubbing pots, trying to ignore the hollow ache in her chest. She didn't see the boy again. But that night, lying on her thin mattress in the servants' quarters with a guard posted outside her door, she thought about those gray eyes and wondered whose child Kael was. Wondered if his mother held him tight at night and told him he was loved. Wondered what it would feel like to matter to someone like that. Sleep came in fragments, broken by dreams of wine and poison, and a king's eyes turning from human to wolf and back again. The summons came on the 7th day. "His Majesty wants to see you," the guard said, yanking Leora from the potato bin where she'd been sorting sprouted tubers from salvageable ones. "Now!" Leora's hands were filthy, her dress splattered with mud and vegetable scraps. Can I at least... now? She was escorted through corridors she'd never seen before, deep into the castle's private wings where nobility lived and servants only entered to clean. Rich tapestries lined the walls. Polished floors gleamed under her dirty boots. Twice they passed nobles who stopped mid-conversation to stare at her like she was a curiosity in a traveling show. The guard stopped outside an ornate door, knocked twice, and pushed it open without waiting for a response. Ronan Varric stood by a window, arms crossed, looking out over his kingdom. He didn't turn when she entered. "Leave us," he told the guard. "Your Majesty, protocol states, I said leave." The door closed. Leora stood just inside the room, hyper-aware of the dirt under her fingernails, the sweat on her neck, the way she smelled like kitchen grease and desperation. The Alpha King, by contrast, looked like he'd been carved from marble, perfectly composed, perfectly controlled, perfectly untouchable. "You wanted to see me," she said when the silence stretched too long. Ronan turned. His eyes, those predator's eyes that had haunted her dreams, studied her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. She didn't. "I've been investigating," he said. "The poisoning. Who knew what, when, and why? And? And you were right about the nightshade extract. My physician confirmed it, mixed with wolfsbane and iron root, just like you said. Very specific, very deliberate." Leora waited. There had to be more. "The problem," Ronan continued, moving away from the window, "is that the wine I drank contained something completely different. Hemlock and silver ash, basic poison, fast-acting." Her mind raced, connecting pieces. 2 different attempts. Exactly. He stopped a few feet from her, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. "Someone poisoned the wine with hemlock. It should have killed me. But then something else happened, something that triggered the symptoms you treated, which means the hemlock didn't work, and someone had a backup plan." Leora's stomach dropped. "Or there are 2 different people trying to kill you. Or one person with a very complicated strategy." Ronan's expression was unreadable. "Either way, you saved me from something the hemlock couldn't accomplish, which means you're either innocent or you're playing a game so intricate I can't see the edges yet." "I'm not playing anything. So you keep saying." He circled her slowly, and Leora's instincts screamed at her to run, to submit, to do anything except stand there while an alpha studied her like prey. She locked her knees and stayed put. "Tell me about your mother." The question came from nowhere, hit like a fist. "What? You said she was a healer, that you learned about poisons from her." Ronan stopped in front of her again. "Who was she? Where did she study? How did a servant's daughter get access to that kind of knowledge?" Leora's hands clenched. "She's dead." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." The words came out sharper than intended, but Leora was done being interrogated like a criminal. "My mother taught me what she knew before she died. I don't know where she learned it. I don't know if it came from books or from another healer or from trial and error. I was 12 when she passed. I didn't think to ask for her educational history." Ronan's eyes narrowed. "You're angry." "I'm tired." Leora took a step forward, reckless, closing the distance between them until she could smell the leather and pine scent that clung to him. "I'm tired of being treated like a criminal. I'm tired of being watched every second. I'm tired of scrubbing floors for people who think I should be dead. So yes, Your Majesty, I'm angry. If that makes me guilty, then execute me and be done with it." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Ronan's wolf was right there beneath his skin. She could sense it somehow, could feel the predator weighing whether she was prey or threat. Then he smiled, actually smiled, sharp and humorless. "You don't beg. Would it help?" "No." The smile faded. "Sit down." "I'd rather..." It wasn't a request. Leora sat in the nearest chair, an uncomfortable thing made of carved wood and velvet cushions. Ronan remained standing, looking down at her. "Lady Morgana wants you executed," he said flatly. "She's been pressuring the council, spreading rumors, building support. She's convinced half the nobility that you're a threat to the kingdom." "I know." "She's also the one who poisoned me with hemlock." The room tilted. Leora gripped the chair's arms. "You know that for certain?" "I know she had access, motive, and opportunity. I know she's been positioning herself to either marry me or take my throne for years. And I know she's terrified of you for reasons I don't fully understand yet. Ronan leaned against his desk, arms crossed, which means keeping you alive is both dangerous and necessary. Necessary for what? Bait. The word landed like ice water. Leora stared at him. You want to use me to draw her out. If Morgana thinks you're a threat, she'll move against you. When she does, I'll have proof. His expression was cold, tactical. It's the fastest way to end this. It's also the fastest way to get me killed. I'll have guards on you at all times. You'll be safer than you are now. I'm not safe now, Leora said through gritted teeth. I'm tolerated. There's a difference. Then this is your chance to change that. Ronan pushed off the desk, moving closer. Help me catch Morgana, and I'll clear your name publicly. You'll have your freedom back, your reputation, maybe even a position in the castle if you want it. It was a trap. Had to be. Kings didn't make deals with servants. They gave orders and expected obedience. But Leora searched his face and found something unexpected. Desperation. Not visible, barely there, but present. The Alpha King needed this to work as much as she did, maybe more. What do I have to do? She asked. Act normal. Go about your work. If Morgana approaches you, she won't approach me herself. She'll send someone else to do the dirty work. Ronan nodded slowly. You're probably right, which means you need to stay alert. Trust no one. And if anyone offers you food or drink, I'm not an idiot. I'm starting to realize that. Something shifted in his expression, almost like respect. Why did you help me that night? The truth. Leora met his eyes. Because you were dying and I could stop it. That's all. Most people would have let the Alpha King choke on his own poison. I'm not most people. No, Ronan said quietly. You're not. The moment stretched between them, fragile and strange. Then footsteps sounded in the corridor outside, and Ronan stepped back, the distance returning like a wall slamming into place. Go back to the kitchens, he said, voice formal again. Act like nothing's changed. I'll have my people watching. Leora stood, smoothing her filthy dress. And if Morgana's people get to me before yours do? They won't. You can't promise that. No, Ronan admitted. But I can promise that if they kill you, I'll burn her entire house to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. It wasn't comfort, it was vengeance. But in a kingdom like Arkenfell, maybe that was the closest thing to protection she'd get. Leora turned to leave, then paused at the door. That boy, Kael, who is he? Ronan's expression shuddered completely. Why? He talked to me in the kitchens a few days ago, before his mother dragged him away. Leora studied the king's face, looking for recognition. Gray eyes, dark hair, maybe 8 years old. I don't know every child in the castle. Right. But something in the way Ronan wouldn't meet her eyes told a different story. Forget I asked. She left before he could respond, the guard falling into step behind her immediately. The walk back to the kitchens felt longer, colder. Leora's mind churned through everything Ronan had said, everything he hadn't. 2 poison attempts, Lady Morgana as the primary suspect, and Leora herself as bait in a trap she didn't fully understand, plus a mysterious boy with gray eyes that reminded her of storms, and a king who went very still when she mentioned him. The pieces didn't fit together yet, but they would. They had to. That night, Leora dreamed of her mother for the first time in years. Not the wasted, dying version from the end, but her mother as she'd been when Leora was small, strong, and capable, grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle, explaining which plants healed and which killed and why the difference sometimes came down to a single drop. Never trust a wolf in human skin, her mother said in the dream, though Leora couldn't remember her ever saying those words in life. They'll eat you alive and call it love. Leora woke to darkness and the sound of her own heartbeat. The guard outside her door was snoring softly. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. She sat up, every nerve suddenly screaming danger. The servants' quarters were never silent. There were always sounds, snoring or shifting, or someone getting up to use the chamber pot. But tonight, nothing. Leora slipped out of bed, bare feet silent on cold stone. Her door was locked from the outside, but the window, a hand clamped over her mouth from behind. Don't scream, a woman's voice whispered. I'm not here to hurt you. Leora drove her elbow backward hard, connected with ribs, heard a gasp. The hand released her and she spun, fists up. The woman from the kitchen stood there. Kael's mother. She was clutching her side, breathing hard, but her eyes were desperate rather than aggressive. "Please," she whispered, "I need your help." "How did you get in here?" "Servants' passages? I know this castle better than the guards do." The woman glanced at the door, where the guard was still snoring. "He'll wake up soon. We don't have much time." "Time for what?" "My son, Kael." The woman's voice cracked. "He's sick. Really sick. I've tried everything, but he's getting worse, and the physician won't see him because we're just servants, and I don't know what else to—" "Why come to me?" Leora interrupted. "Everyone thinks I'm a poisoner. Because you knew how to save the king when no one else did. Because my mother was a healer too, and I recognized the way you looked at those herbs in the kitchen. You know things." The woman grabbed Leora's hand, squeezing tight. "Please, I know it's dangerous for you. I know you shouldn't. But he's only 8, and he's all I have, and I don't know who else to ask." Leora's mind raced. This could be a trap. Could be Morgana's play, using a sick child to lure her into breaking the king's rules. Could be exactly what Ronan had warned her about. But the desperation in this woman's eyes was real. Leora had seen enough grief to recognize it. "If I do this," she said slowly, "and someone finds out, it'll be both our heads." "I know. The king will think I'm conspiring." "I know. Why should I trust you?" The woman's face crumpled. "Because you're the only person in this entire castle who looked at my son like he was a child instead of a mistake." The words hit harder than any plea could have. Leora thought of gray eyes and unguarded curiosity, of a boy who'd called her dangerous and interesting in the same breath. "Take me to him," she said. The woman's relief was palpable. "Thank you. Thank you. I'm Sarah, by the way." "I know. Your son told me." They moved through the servants' passages in silence, squeezing through narrow spaces between walls that Leora hadn't known existed. Sarah navigated by touch, clearly having made this journey 1,000 times. Behind them, the guard's snoring continued, oblivious. Sarah's quarters were smaller than Leora's, barely large enough for 2 sleeping mats and a trunk. Kael lay on one of the mats, his small body curled tight, shaking. Even in the dim candlelight, Leora could see the fever flush on his cheeks. She knelt beside him, pressed her hand to his forehead, burning hot. "How long has he been like this?" 3 days. It started as a cough, then the fever came. Sarah hovered nearby, wringing her hands. "I've given him willow bark tea, cool cloths, everything I know, but has he been around anyone sick? Any of the other children?" "No, he mostly keeps to himself. Reads in the library when the tutors aren't using it." Leora pulled back Kael's eyelid gently, checking his eyes. Pupils responsive, not dilated. "Good." She pressed her ear to his chest, listening to his breathing. Congested but steady. Not pneumonia yet. "Kael," she said softly. "Can you hear me?" The boy's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "You're the dangerous lady." Despite everything, Leora almost smiled. "That's me." "Where does it hurt?" "Everywhere." His voice was a thread. "Throat mostly, and my head." "Open your mouth." He obeyed. Leora tilted his face toward the candlelight, examining his throat. Red and swollen, white spots visible on the tonsils. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, listing symptoms and treatments. "It's tonsillitis," she told Sarah. "Bad, but treatable. He needs honey mixed with crushed sage and a pinch of salt. It'll help with the throat. And feverfew tea, as much as he can drink. Keep him cool, but not cold. The fever should break in a day or 2. "That's all?" "That's all." Leora stood, brushing off her knees. "He'll be miserable for a while, but he'll live." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I can get those things. The kitchens have honey and sage, and feverfew grows in the garden. I'll start now." "No." Leora caught her arm. "Wait until morning. If you're seen gathering herbs in the middle of the night, someone will ask questions. Give him water for now. Keep him comfortable. Tomorrow, get the ingredients during normal kitchen work and no one will notice." "You're right. I wasn't thinking." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay." "Don't get caught," Leora said. "That's payment enough." She left the way she'd come, squeezing back through the hidden passages, retracing their route. The guard was still snoring when she slipped back into her room, the lock clicking shut behind her, as if she'd never left. Leora lay back down, staring at the ceiling, her heart still racing. She'd just broken every rule Ronan had set, left her room, treated someone without permission, used knowledge that made the court suspicious in the first place. If anyone found out, but Kael's fever-bright eyes floated in her memory, and she knew she'd make the same choice again. Some things mattered more than survival. Some things were worth the risk. Morning came with shouting. Leora jerked awake to the sound of boots in the corridor, voices raised in anger. Her door flew open and guards poured in, surrounding her before she could even sit up. "On your feet," the lead guard barked. "Now!" Her heart dropped into her stomach. They knew. Somehow, they knew about last night. She was hauled upright, barely given time to grab her shawl before being dragged into the corridor. Other servants peered out of their rooms, eyes wide. Bertrice stood at the end of the hall, arms crossed, expression smug. "Where are we going?" Leora demanded. No answer, just rough hands and rapid marching through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. They emerged into the main hall where nobility had gathered in small clusters, whispering behind their hands. Lady Morgana stood near the throne, dressed in emerald silk, her expression perfectly composed. Ronan sat on the throne itself, and his face was carved from ice. "Kneel," the guard ordered, forcing Leora down. The stone bit into her knees. She kept her chin up anyway, meeting Ronan's eyes. His expression gave away nothing. "Leora Hale," Lady Morgana's voice rang out, clear and cruel. "You stand accused of conspiracy, forbidden healing practices, and attempted murder of a castle resident." The world tilted. "Murder?" "Last night," Morgana continued, "you were seen leaving your quarters through forbidden passages. You entered the private rooms of Sarah Thane and administered unknown substances to her child. This morning, the boy is gravely ill, worse than before your interference." "That's not—" Leora started. "Silence!" Morgana's smile was razor sharp. "We have witnesses. The guard posted at your door, who conveniently fell asleep, drugged, no doubt, by your hand. Servants who saw you in the passages. And most damning, the child himself, who grows sicker by the hour despite your so-called treatment." Leora's mind raced. Kael had been improving when she left. The treatment was sound, unless someone had given him something else after she'd gone. Something to make him worse. To frame her. She looked at Ronan, silently begging him to see the trap, to understand. But his expression remained closed, distant. The Alpha King, not the man who'd asked for her help just yesterday. "What say you, Your Majesty?" Morgana asked, turning to Ronan. "Shall we finally put an end to this threat?" The throne room went silent. Every eye turned to Ronan. He stood slowly, descending the steps until he stood directly in front of Leora. This close, she could see the tension in his jaw, the white-knuckle grip on his control. "Where's the boy now?" he asked, voice flat. "In the physician's care," Morgana answered, "though I fear it may be too late." "If he dies," Ronan said, still looking at Leora, "you die. Slowly. Publicly. Is that understood?" Leora's throat closed. She managed a nod. "Take her to the cells," Ronan ordered. "Under heavy guard. No one sees her. No one speaks to her. No one touches her without my direct command." The guards hauled her upright. As they dragged her toward the dungeons, Leora caught one last glimpse of Lady Morgana's face. She was smiling. The dungeons of Arkenfell smelled like old blood and despair. Leora was thrown into a cell so deep in the castle's foundation that no daylight reached it. The guards chained her wrists to the wall, not tight enough to cut off circulation, but secure enough that she couldn't reach the door. Then they left, their footsteps echoing away into silence. She was alone in the dark. Hours passed. Maybe days. Time lost meaning when you couldn't see the sun. Leora's knees ached from kneeling on stone. Her shoulders screamed from the angle of the chains. Thirst turned her mouth to sand, then to something worse. No one came. She thought about Kael, wondered if he was still alive or if Morgana had already finished what she'd started. Thought about Sarah's desperate eyes, the way she'd trusted Leora to save her son. Thought about Ronan's cold expression as he'd sentenced her to this hole. Mostly, though, she thought about her mother. "Never trust a wolf in human skin," the dream memory whispered. "They'll eat you alive and call it love." Leora had saved the Alpha King's life, and this was her reward. Chains, darkness, a death sentence hanging over her head like a blade waiting to drop. She should have let him choke on his own poison. The thought came unbidden, bitter and sharp. She tested it, turned it over in her mind. Would she really have made a different choice? Watched a man die when she had the knowledge to save him? No. Even now, even here, she wouldn't have changed that moment. Because the person she was, the person her mother had raised her to be, didn't let people die out of spite or self-preservation, even if it killed her. The door scraped open. Torchlight flooded in, blinding after so long in the dark. Leora squinted against it, trying to see who'd come. Commander Garrett stepped into the cell, alone. He looked tired, older than he had a week ago. Deep lines bracketed his mouth. "You're still alive," he said. Not quite a question. Disappointed? Honestly, I don't know what to feel anymore. Garrett moved closer, studying her face. The boy lived. Relief hit so hard Leora's knees buckled. The chains caught her weight. Kael's alive? Fevered for 2 days, then it broke, just like you said it would. Garrett's expression was unreadable. The physician examined him. Confirmed tonsillitis, confirmed your treatment was correct, confirmed someone gave him a secondary poison after you left, something to make him worse and frame you for it. Morgana, Leora said. Probably, but we can't prove it. Garrett crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes at level. She's good at covering her tracks. The servant who administered the poison is dead, fell from the castle walls yesterday morning. Tragic accident, according to witnesses. Convenient accident. Very. Garrett pulled a key from his belt, reaching for her chains. His Majesty wants to see you. So he can execute me in person? So he can apologize. The chains fell away. Leora's arms dropped, useless and numb. Garrett caught her before she collapsed, holding her steady until feeling returned to her limbs in waves of agony. Can you walk? He asked. Do I have a choice? Not really. He helped her out of the cell, supporting most of her weight as they climbed stairs that seemed to go on forever. Leora's legs shook with each step. Her vision swam. She'd been given no food, no water, nothing but darkness, and her own thoughts for however long she'd been down there. They emerged into corridors she didn't recognize, private wings again, but different from before. Garrett led her to a door, knocked once, and pushed it open without waiting. Ronan stood by a window, his back to them. He didn't turn. Leave us, he said quietly. Garrett hesitated. Your Majesty. I said leave. The door closed. Leora swayed on her feet, caught herself against the wall. Her pride demanded she stand straight, but her body had reached its limit. She slid down to sit on the floor, back against stone, and waited. Ronan finally turned. His eyes went to her immediately, cataloging her condition with a single sweep. Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or anger. Hard to tell. You look terrible, he said. You should see the dungeon. I gave specific orders, water every 6 hours, food twice a day, clean straw. Your guards must have misunderstood. Leora's voice came out hoarse, wrecked. Or maybe Morgana's reach extends further than you think. Ronan's jaw tightened. He crossed the room, grabbed a pitcher from his desk, and poured water into a cup. Brought it to her without a word. Leora stared at it. Is it poisoned? If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't waste poison. But he took a drink from the cup first, then refilled it and handed it over. She drank. The water tasted like salvation and hurt going down her abused throat. Ronan waited until she'd finished, then refilled it again. The boy lived, he said finally. Your treatment worked. I know, Garrett told me. You saved him, despite the risk to yourself, despite my orders to stay in your room. Ronan sat on the edge of his desk, studying her. Why? Because he's 8 years old and he was dying. Leora set the cup down. Why do you keep asking me that? Why can't you just accept that some people help others without ulterior motives? Because in my experience, everyone has ulterior motives. Then your experience is limited. Ronan's wolf flickered in his eyes, there and gone. You don't talk to me like a king. You don't act like one, Leora shot back. Kings protect their people. You threw me in a dungeon on false charges and let your guards torture me through neglect. So no, Your Majesty, I'm not particularly interested in showing you respect right now. Silence. Ronan's hands gripped the desk edge hard enough that his knuckles went white. You're right, he said, and the admission seemed to cost him. I failed you. I knew Morgana was setting a trap, and I let you walk into it anyway, because I thought I could control the situation. I was wrong. People died because you were wrong. I know. Kael almost died because you were wrong. I know. Ronan's voice went rough. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Trusted the wrong people, believed the wrong lies. But putting you in that cell? That's one I'll regret until I die. Leora searched his face for deception, for manipulation, found only exhaustion and something that looked dangerously close to genuine remorse. Why does Morgana hate me so much? She asked. I'm nobody. I'm nothing to her. You're a threat. How? I don't want your throne. I don't want anything from you. That's exactly why. Ronan stood, began pacing. Everyone in this castle wants something from me. Power, money, influence. They scheme and plot and play games, and I know how to handle that. But you helped me and asked for nothing in return. You saved that boy and expected no reward. You're genuine in a place where genuine doesn't exist, and that scares people like Morgana because they can't predict you. That's insane. Welcome to Arkenfell. Ronan stopped pacing, turned to face her fully. I need your help. You need my help, Leora repeated slowly. After everything that just happened, you want me to help you. Yes. You're out of your mind. Probably. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But you're the only person in this entire kingdom I can trust right now, and I'm running out of time. Trust me, you don't even know me. I know you kept a child alive at great personal risk. I know you saved my life when letting me die would have been easier. I know you don't lie very well, and you're terrible at politics, and you say exactly what you think even when it's dangerous. Ronan moved closer, crouched in front of her the way Garrett had in the cell. That makes you the most trustworthy person I've met in 15 years. Leora wanted to laugh, wanted to cry, settled for shaking her head. What do you need? Morgana's planning something bigger than poisoning me or framing you. My informants are turning up dead. Nobles who were loyal to me are suddenly switching allegiance. There's talk of a coup, but I can't find the center of it. His eyes burned into hers. Someone's orchestrating this from inside the castle, and I need to know who before they strike. And you think I can help with that how, exactly? You move through the castle like a ghost. Servants see you but don't really notice you. You hear things, see things that nobles miss because they're too busy playing their games. Ronan's intensity was palpable. I need eyes I can trust, ears that won't be bought, someone who can go places I can't without raising suspicion. You want me to spy for you. I want you to survive. And right now, the only way either of us survives is if we stop whatever's coming before it arrives. Leora closed her eyes. Every rational part of her screamed to refuse, to demand her freedom, and disappear into the wilderness beyond Arkenfell's borders. But where would she go? What would she do? She had no money, no resources, no skills beyond healing and hard work. And Kael's gray eyes haunted her, Sarah's desperate gratitude. Even the other servants, who treated her like poison, but who would suffer if the kingdom fell into chaos. If I do this, she said, opening her eyes, I want something in return. Name it. Protection for Sarah and Kael. Whatever happens, they don't get caught in the crossfire. Done. And when this is over, you let me leave. No questions, no conditions, just freedom. Ronan's expression flickered, something almost like disappointment, but he nodded. Agreed. Then you have your spy. Leora pushed herself upright, using the wall for support. Where do I start? By getting out of those rags and eating something before you collapse. Ronan stood, offered his hand. Then we plan. She ignored the hand, pushed herself fully upright on her own. Her legs threatened to give out, but she locked her knees and stayed standing through sheer stubbornness. I can walk, she said. I know you can. But Ronan stayed close anyway, matching her slow pace to the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry. For the dungeon. For letting them hurt you. Sorry doesn't heal scars. No, he agreed quietly. It doesn't. Three days later, Leora stood in Lady Morgana's private solar, serving tea like she'd done it her entire life. Getting assigned to Morgana's personal staff had been surprisingly easy. The lady was always dismissing servants for minor infractions, always looking for new faces she could intimidate. Leora had simply appeared at the right time with the right story. A kitchen worker hoping to advance, willing to work hard and keep her mouth shut. Morgana had hired her on the spot. Now Leora moved through the solar with practiced invisibility, pouring tea for the three noblewomen gathered around Morgana's table. They barely glanced at her. The council meeting is in 4 days, Morgana was saying, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. We need to ensure the votes go our way. Lord Blackthorn is still loyal to Ronan, another woman said. Lady Helena, if Leora remembered correctly. He won't support removing the king. Then we'll have to remove Lord Blackthorn first. Morgana sipped her tea delicately. Tragic hunting accident. Very unfortunate. The casual discussion of murder made Leora's hands shake. She kept pouring, kept her face blank. And what about the succession? A third woman asked. If Ronan dies without an heir, the throne reverts to the council to decide, Morgana finished. And the council will choose me. I have the bloodline, the support, and the vision to lead Arkenfell into a new era. What about the commander? Garrett is loyal to Ronan. He won't accept a coup quietly. Garrett will fall with his king. Morgana's smile was terrible. Along with anyone else foolish enough to stand in my way. Leora's mind raced, cataloging names and plans. This was bigger than she'd imagined. Not just removing Ronan, but restructuring the entire power structure of Arkenfell. Morgana wasn't planning a simple assassination. She was planning a revolution. More tea, my lady? Leora asked quietly. Morgana barely looked at her. Leave the pot and go. We're discussing private matters. Leora curtsied and retreated to the servants' corridor outside. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had to get this information to Ronan immediately. A hand grabbed her arm, yanked her into a side passage. Leora spun, fist raised, and found herself face to face with Sarah. What are you doing here? Sarah hissed. Morgana's staff? Are you insane? Probably. Leora glanced back toward the solar door. How's Kyle? Better? Recovering? Sarah's grip tightened. But that's not why I'm here. I heard things. About you. About what you're doing for the king. I don't know what you're... Don't lie to me. I've been in this castle my whole life. I know what spying looks like. Sarah's eyes were desperate. You need to stop. Now. Before Morgana figures out what you're doing and kills you. I can't stop. Why not? What do you owe the king? Nothing. But I owe those people in the kitchens who are going to die if Morgana takes power. I owe every servant who will be purged when she consolidates control. I owe... Leora stopped, the truth hitting her. I owe my mother, who taught me to help people even when it's hard. Sarah's expression crumpled. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but at least I'll die doing something that matters. Martyrdom is overrated. But Sarah released her arm. Just be careful. Please. Kyle asks about you, calls you the dangerous lady who saved him. If you die, I'll have to explain why the world is so cruel that good people don't survive. The words hit like arrows. Leora squeezed Sarah's hand once, then pulled away. I'll try not to die then. Try harder. Leora slipped back into the main corridor, making her way toward the king's private study through routes she'd memorized over the past few days. Servants' passages, hidden stairs, forgotten hallways. The castle was a maze if you knew how to navigate it. She was halfway there when she heard voices ahead. Male. Angry. Leora pressed herself into an alcove, barely breathing. Done with his games, someone was saying. The king is weak. Everyone saw it when he was poisoned. Now's the time to strike. Morgana says we wait until after the council meeting. Morgana's a fool if she thinks Ronan won't see this coming. He's already suspicious. We should kill him now, tonight, and deal with the consequences later. And Garrett? Dies with him, along with anyone loyal to the old regime. The voices faded as the men moved past. Leora waited until silence returned, then continued toward Ronan's study. Her hands were shaking again. The timeline was accelerating. Morgana's carefully laid plans were unraveling because her co-conspirators were getting impatient, which meant Ronan was in immediate danger. Leora reached the study, knocked their pre-arranged pattern. 3 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick. The door opened immediately. Ronan pulled her inside, already reading the panic on her face. What happened? Council meeting in 4 days. Morgana's making her move then. But some of her people want to kill you tonight. They think waiting is too risky. The words tumbled out in a rush. Lord Blackthorn is next on her list. Hunting accident. and she's planning to purge everyone loyal to you once she takes power. Ronan's expression went cold and tactical. He crossed to his desk, pulled out a map of the castle, began marking locations. How many people did you overhear? In the solar? 3 noble women plus Morgana. In the hallway? 2 men, didn't see their faces. That's at least 6 confirmed conspirators, probably more. Ronan's hand moved across the map. If they're planning to move tonight, they'll come through the private corridors. Too many witnesses in the main halls. You need to leave. Get out of the castle until... I'm not running from my own home. Ronan looked up, eyes fierce. This ends tonight, one way or another. That's suicide. That's kingship. He moved away from the desk, toward his weapons wall. Started arming himself, knife in boot, sword at hip, smaller blades hidden in sleeves. You should go. Get somewhere safe. This is about to get bloody. I'm not leaving. Leora, I said I'm not leaving. She stepped forward, chin raised. You need someone watching your back, someone they won't expect. You're not a fighter. No, but I'm good at not being noticed. Leora pulled the small knife from her sleeve, the one she'd stolen from Morgana's solar, just in case. And I'm very good at staying alive. Ronan stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Actually smiled, real and warm and completely at odds with the situation. You're the strangest person I've ever met, he said. I'll take that as a compliment. It was. The smile faded. If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I want you to know... He stopped, searching for words. You reminded me that not everyone in this world is broken. Thank you for that. Before Leora could respond, footsteps sounded in the corridor outside. Multiple sets, moving fast. Ronan's hand went to his sword. Hide. Now. No. That wasn't a request. The door exploded inward. 4 men poured into the room, weapons drawn. Leora recognized 2 of them, minor nobles who'd attended the diplomatic feast. The others were hired muscle, scarred, and dangerous. Your Majesty, one of the nobles said mockingly. So kind of you to make this easy. Ronan's sword cleared its sheath in one smooth motion. You're making a mistake. The only mistake was letting you live this long. They attacked simultaneously. Ronan moved like violence made flesh, his blade finding the first attacker's throat before the man could raise his guard. Blood sprayed. The body dropped. The other 3 hesitated for half a heartbeat, long enough for Ronan to position himself between them and Leora. Run, he told her. But Leora saw the 4th man circling toward the window, saw the crossbow in his hands, saw the bolt aimed at Ronan's unprotected back. She threw her knife. It wasn't a good throw. Wasn't even a particularly accurate throw, but it was enough. The blade hit the crossbowman's shoulder, ruining his aim. The bolt went wide, shattering against the wall. The distraction cost Ronan. One of the remaining attackers got inside his guard, blade slicing across his ribs. Ronan snarled, a sound more wolf than human, and drove his elbow into the man's face. Bone crunched. The attacker staggered back. But there were still 2 left, and Ronan was bleeding. The study door burst open again. Commander Garrett stormed in with 6 guards, weapons drawn, murder in his eyes. The fight ended in seconds. The crossbowman tried to run, got tackled by 2 guards. The remaining noble dropped his sword and raised his hands, already pleading for mercy. Garrett crossed to Ronan, gripped his shoulder. You're hurt. I'm fine. But Ronan swayed slightly, hand pressed to his bleeding side. You're an idiot. Garrett's eyes found Leora, widened. Did she? Saved my life. Again. Ronan's voice was tight with pain. Seems to be making a habit of it. I threw a knife badly, Leora corrected, moving toward him. That's hardly heroic. You threw it when everyone else was running. I'll take bad aim and courage over perfect cowardice any day. Ronan's eyes met hers, something shifting in their depths. Thank you. Before Leora could respond, shouting erupted from somewhere deeper in the castle. Garrett's head snapped toward the sound. That's coming from the east wing, he said. Morgana's quarters. She's making her move, Ronan said. Tonight was supposed to be a distraction. While I was fighting these idiots, she'd be securing the throne room and key positions throughout the castle. Then we need to move now. Garrett turned to his guards. Secure these prisoners. Send word to all loyal units. Converge on the throne room. Anyone bearing Morgana's colors is to be arrested on sight. The guards moved immediately, dragging the captured assassins away. The crossbowman was still bleeding from where Leora's knife had hit him. She felt a distant satisfaction at that. "You need a physician," she told Ronan. "I need to stop a coup." But he let her press a cloth against his wound, hissed when she applied pressure. "Later. After. You'll be dead later if you lose too much blood. Then I'll die defending my throne." Ronan pulled away, gripping his sword despite the blood dripping down his side. "Come on, we end this now." They moved through the castle like a hunting pack. Ronan and Garrett at the lead, Leora trailing behind with the remaining guards. Servants scattered as they passed. Some bowed, some fled. A few fell in behind them, grabbing whatever weapons they could find. Loyalty, Leora realized, wasn't just about nobility. The common people who'd lived under Ronan's rule knew what would happen if Morgana seized power, knew they'd be the first casualties in her purge, so they followed their king into battle. The throne room doors were barred from inside. Garrett didn't hesitate. He kicked them hard enough to crack wood. The second kick splintered the bar. The third sent the doors flying open. Lady Morgana stood before the throne, surrounded by at least 20 armed nobles and guards. She'd changed into armor. Beautiful, ornate, completely impractical. But the sword in her hand looked very real. "Ronan," she said pleasantly, "you're late to your own execution." "Funny. I was thinking the same about you." Ronan stepped into the throne room, and despite the blood soaking his shirt, despite the impossible odds, he radiated absolute authority. "Drop your weapons and I'll make your deaths quick." Morgana laughed. "You're outnumbered, outmaneuvered, out of time. Your reign is over." "Then why are you still talking?" Ronan raised his sword. "If you're so certain, come take my throne." "Gladly." The throne room exploded into chaos. Nobles clashed with guards. Swords rang against armor. Someone screamed. Blood spattered across marble floors. Leora pressed herself against a pillar, trying to stay out of the melee, while keeping eyes on Ronan. He fought like a demon, his blade finding gaps in armor, throats, anything vital. Garrett fought at his back, the two moving in perfect synchronization. But there were too many attackers. For every one they dropped, two more seemed to appear. Morgana circled the edge of the battle, waiting, patient, predatory. Leora's mind raced. They were losing. Even if Ronan and Garrett were the best fighters in Arkenfell, which they probably were, they couldn't hold against those numbers. Not while Ronan was already wounded. They needed an advantage, something to shift the odds. Leora's eyes found the throne itself, massive, ancient, and positioned on a raised dais that overlooked the entire room. She ran. Skirting the edge of combat, dodging falling bodies and flying weapons, Leora reached the throne and climbed onto its seat. From this height she could see everything, the full scope of the battle, where Ronan's people were concentrated, where Morgana's forces had gaps in their formation. "Ronan!" she screamed over the din. "East side! They're trying to flank you!" His head snapped around. He saw the movement immediately, redirected Garrett and 3 guards to intercept. The flanking attempt collapsed. Morgana's eyes found Leora, narrowed with sudden fury. "That little bitch," she snarled. She moved toward the throne with terrifying speed. Leora barely had time to register the threat before Morgana was on the dais, sword raised. A wolf hit Morgana from the side with the force of a battering ram. Ronan, no longer human, fully shifted, drove the noblewoman to the ground. His jaws closed around her sword arm. She screamed. The weapon clattered away. "No!" One of Morgana's guards broke from the fight, charging toward them. "Get off her, you animal!" Garrett's blade took the guard through the heart before he'd gone 3 steps. The battle shifted. Morgana's forces saw their leader pinned beneath an alpha wolf, saw her blood-staining marble, and their morale shattered. Weapons started dropping, hands raised in surrender. It was over in minutes. Ronan shifted back to human, bleeding and naked and absolutely terrifying. He stood over Morgana's broken form, breathing hard. "You lose," he said quietly. Morgana spat blood. "Kill me then. I know you want to." "I want a lot of things." Ronan gestured to Garrett. "Lock her in the deepest cell we have. Full chains, guards rotating every 2 hours. If she escapes, I'll execute everyone involved." Guards moved forward, hauling Morgana to her feet. She struggled, screaming threats and promises of revenge. But she was dragged away nonetheless, her voice fading into echoes. Silence fell over the throne room. Bodies littered the floor, some dead, some wounded, all testament to how close Arkenfell had come to civil war. Surviving nobles stood frozen, waiting to see if they'd be arrested too. Ronan turned to address them, swaying slightly from blood loss. Before he could speak, his knees buckled. Leora jumped down from the throne, caught him before he hit the ground. Barely. He was twice her size and pure muscle, but she managed to ease him down rather than let him fall. "Physician!" Garrett bellowed. "Now!" Ronan's eyes found Leora's. "Did we win?" "You won." She pressed her hands against his wound, trying to slow the bleeding. "But you're an idiot for fighting in this condition. So you keep saying." His hand came up, covered hers. "That thing you did. Climbing the throne, calling out positions. That was smart." "I panicked." "Smart panic, then." His eyes started to close. "Hey, stay awake." Leora tapped his cheek harder than necessary. "You don't get to die after I saved you 3 times. 3? The feast, the assassins in your study, and just now." She pressed harder on his wound. "You owe me." "Put it on my tab." But his eyes opened again, focused on her face. "You're covered in blood." "So are you." "Looks better on you." That's the blood loss talking. The physician arrived with assistants and a litter. They worked with efficient panic, binding Ronan's wound, checking for other injuries. Garrett hovered nearby, barking orders at anyone within earshot. "The girl saved his life," Leora heard one of the nobles whisper. "She's been saving his life," another responded. 3 times now, apparently. Maybe she's not a poisoner after all. Maybe we were wrong about a lot of things. Leora ignored them. Her hands were shaking again, reaction finally setting in. She'd just witnessed a battle, thrown a knife at a person, watched the Alpha King shift and tear apart his enemies. She should be terrified, traumatized, running for the hills. Instead, she felt oddly calm, like some part of her had been waiting for exactly this, for a moment where survival required action instead of submission. "Miss Hale." Garrett's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "You should come with us. His Majesty will want to see you when he wakes." "I'm not nobility. I don't belong in the—" "You just saved the king's life in front of half the court," Garrett interrupted. "You belong wherever you damn well choose to be. Now come on before I have to carry you too." Leora followed. They moved Ronan to his private chambers, where the physician worked for over an hour, stitching the wound in his side and treating various other injuries Leora hadn't even noticed. She waited outside with Garrett, neither of them speaking. Finally, the physician emerged. "He'll live. The wound was deep but clean, no vital organs damaged. He needs rest." "Can I see him?" Leora asked. The physician looked at Garrett, who nodded. Leora entered the chamber alone. Ronan lay in his massive bed, bandaged and pale but breathing steadily. His eyes opened when she approached. "You're still here," he said. "You keep almost dying. Someone has to make sure you don't." "Noble of you." He shifted slightly, winced. "I meant what I said. You saved my life tonight. If you hadn't warned me about the flank, you would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, maybe not." His hand reached for hers, squeezed gently. "Thank you. For everything. For not running when you had every reason to." Leora looked at their joined hands. Hers were still stained with his blood. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild, root out the remaining traitors, make sure nothing like this happens again." Ronan's eyes studied her face. "And I keep my promise. Your freedom. Whenever you want it." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You earned it." But something in his expression looked almost disappointed. "Where will you go?" Leora realized she had no answer. She'd spent so long focused on survival, on making it through each day, that she'd never thought about what came after. "I don't know," she admitted. "You could stay." The words came out quiet, tentative. "Not as a servant, as something else. Court healer, maybe, or advisor. Someone I can trust." "You barely know me." "I know enough." Ronan's grip tightened. "I know you're brave and smart and loyal in a way I've never seen before. I know you've saved my life multiple times and asked for nothing in return. I know—" He stopped, seemed to wrestle with something internal. "What?" Leora prompted. "I know I don't want you to leave." The admission came out raw, honest. "Which is selfish and unfair, and you have every right to tell me to go to hell. But there it is." Leora's heart did something complicated in her chest. This was dangerous. Getting attached to a king, letting herself care about someone this powerful, this broken, it could only end badly. But when she looked at Ronan, she didn't see the Alpha King. She saw a man who'd been betrayed so many times he'd forgotten how to trust, fighting to hold together a kingdom that was trying to tear itself apart. She saw someone who needed her, and maybe, just maybe, she needed him too. "I'll think about it," she said. Relief flooded his face. "That's more than I deserve." "Probably." But she smiled despite herself. "Get some rest. We'll talk when you're not delirious from blood loss." "I'm not delirious?" "You're holding my hand and asking me to stay. You're definitely delirious." Ronan laughed. Actually laughed. The sound rusty but genuine. "Fair point." Leora stood to leave, but his hand didn't release hers. "Stay," he said again. "Just until I fall asleep, please." So she stayed, sat in the chair beside his bed, her hand in his, and watched the Alpha King's breathing slow and deepen into sleep, and tried very hard not to think about what it meant that she didn't want to let go either. Dawn broke over Arkenfell in shades of gold and crimson. Leora stood at the window of a guest chamber Garrett had insisted she use, watching the sun rise over a kingdom that had nearly torn itself apart. Bodies were being carried from the throne room. Prisoners were being processed in the dungeons. Somewhere, Lady Morgana sat in chains, her coup failed, her power broken. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Leora felt exhausted, wrung out, like she'd survived something enormous but wasn't sure what came next. A knock at her door. Sarah entered without waiting for permission, her face pale. "Kale's gone," she said. Leora's blood went cold. "What do you mean, gone?" "He was in our room this morning. I went to get breakfast. When I came back, the window was open, and he was—" Sarah's voice broke. "Someone left a note. They took him." She handed Leora a scrap of parchment. The message was written in elegant script. "The boy for the king's life. Come to the North Tower alone at sunset, or the child dies. Tell anyone, and we'll know." Leora's hands went numb. "They're using him to get to Ronan," she whispered. "Who?" "Whoever Morgana was working with. Whoever she didn't name before they dragged her away." Leora crumpled the note. "This isn't over. It was never about just removing Ronan. It's about destroying everything he cares about." "What do I do?" Sarah's eyes were wild with panic. "I can't. He's just a boy." "I'll get him back." The promise came automatically. "I swear I'll bring Kael home." "How?" Leora looked out the window at the rising sun, then back at the note. She had until sunset. 12 hours to find a kidnapped child in a castle full of enemies, without telling anyone or risk getting him killed. 12 hours to save the life of a boy who'd called her dangerous and interesting and looked at her with her own eyes. Wait, her own eyes, gray eyes, like hers, like... The realization hit like lightning. "Sarah," Leora said slowly, "who is Kael's father?" Sarah's face went white. "That's not... It doesn't matter." "Who?" Silence. Then barely a whisper. "You know who." And Leora did. Suddenly, horribly, she understood everything. Why Morgana hated her. Why Ronan had looked so strange when she'd asked about Kael. Why an 8-year-old boy had eyes like a winter storm and the Alpha King's stubborn chin. "He doesn't know," Sarah continued desperately. "Ronan doesn't know he has a son. I never told him. After that night, after what happened. I couldn't. He wouldn't have believed me anyway." Leora's mind spun. What night? What happened? But she was already putting pieces together. A diplomatic feast 8 years ago. A drugged king. A servant girl who helped him. History repeating itself. "I need to go," Leora said, heading for the door. "Where?" "To save your son." She paused at the threshold, looked back. "And to tell a king he's a father before someone uses that knowledge to destroy him." Leora ran. Through corridors that blurred together, past startled servants and confused guards, running like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. Maybe Kael's did. The difference didn't matter anymore. Ronan's chambers. She had to reach Ronan's chambers. The guards posted outside tried to stop her. "His Majesty is resting. He can't be—" "Move." Something in her voice made them step aside. She burst through the door without knocking. Ronan was sitting up in bed, shirtless and bandaged, arguing with his physician about something. Both men turned to stare at her. Out, Leora told the physician. I'm not finished. Out. Now. The physician looked at Ronan, who nodded tiredly. The door closed, leaving them alone. You look like you've seen a ghost, Ronan said. Worse. Leora crossed to the bed, her hands shaking so badly she had to clench them into fists. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. No politics, no king bullshit, just truth. His eyes narrowed. What happened? 8 years ago. Another diplomatic feast. Do you remember it? Ronan went very still. Why are you asking about that? Do you remember it? Parts of it. I was drugged. Someone helped me. He stopped. Understanding dawned slowly, then horror. It was her, Sarah. She was the one who saved your life, yes. Leora's voice was steady despite the chaos in her chest. And afterward? What happened afterward? I don't remember. The drug. Whatever they gave me, it wiped out most of that night. I woke up the next morning with gaps in my memory. His jaw tightened. Why? What does this have to do with... Kael is your son. The words fell between them like stones into still water. Ronan stared at her. What? Kael, the boy I treated, Sarah's son. Leora's hands unclenched. He has your eyes, your chin, your stubborn streak. He's 8 years old, which means he was conceived that night, and someone just kidnapped him to use as leverage against you. That's... Ronan shook his head. That's not possible. I would have known. Sarah would have told me. Would she? After what happened the last time you were drugged at a feast? After you woke up and couldn't remember, and everyone assumed the worst? Leora's voice softened. She was a servant. You were the king. Who would have believed her? Ronan's face went white. He swung his legs out of bed, wincing as the movement pulled his stitches. Where's the boy now? Kidnapped. They left a note demanding you come to the North Tower at sunset, alone. Or they kill him. Then I go to the North Tower. It's a trap. I don't care. Ronan stood, swayed, caught himself against the bedpost. If there's even a chance that boy is mine, there's no chance. He is yours. Leora moved to steady him, her hands gripping his arms. Look at me. I've seen him up close. Talked to him. Treated him when he was sick. He's yours, Ronan. Which means Morgana or whoever's working with her took him specifically because they know what he means. How would they know? If Sarah never told anyone, someone always knows. A physician who examined her, a midwife who delivered him, another servant who put the pieces together. Leora's mind raced. Morgana's been in this castle for years. She's had time to dig up every secret, every weakness. She poisoned you before. This is just another kind of poison. Ronan's hands came up to cover hers. We get him back, whatever it takes. We can't go to the North Tower. That's what they want. Then what do we do? Leora's thoughts spun, calculating angles and possibilities. The North Tower was isolated, defensible, perfect for an ambush. Going there meant walking into a kill box. But not going meant, they want you dead, she said slowly. But they need Kael alive as bait. Which means he's not at the North Tower. He's somewhere else. Somewhere they can keep him secure until they've dealt with you. Where? I don't know, but I know someone who might. Morgana's cell was exactly as unpleasant as promised. Deep underground, damp, cold, the walls slick with moisture. She sat chained to a stone bench, still wearing the remnants of her ornate armor, her face bruised from the battle. She looked up when Leora entered and smiled. The little servant girl, Morgana said. Come to gloat? Come for information. Leora stayed near the door, keeping distance between them. Where's the boy? What boy? Kael, Sarah's son. The one your people kidnapped this morning. Morgana's smile widened. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a bad liar. Leora stepped closer, watching Morgana's eyes. Your coup failed. Your allies are dead or arrested. You're going to spend the rest of your life in this cell. But there's a child involved now, an innocent. Tell me where he is, and maybe I can convince the king to make your imprisonment more comfortable. Comfortable. Morgana laughed, bitter and sharp. You think I care about comfort? I had power, real power. I was going to rule this kingdom. And now you're in chains, so where's your leverage? Everywhere. Morgana leaned forward as far as her restraints allowed. You think arresting me ended anything? I have people throughout this castle, in the guard, in the council, even in the servants' quarters. My network runs deeper than Ronan could ever imagine. Then use it. Call off whoever took the boy. Oh, why would I do that? Because he's 8 years old and he's done nothing to you. He exists. That's enough. Morgana's eyes glittered with malice. Do you know what that child represents? Proof that the great Alpha King can be compromised, that he can lose control, that he fathered a bastard on a servant girl and doesn't even remember it. The nobility would lose their minds if that came out. So this is about embarrassing Ronan? This is about destroying him. Morgana's voice dropped to a hiss. Everything he's built, his reputation, his authority, his precious control, it all crumbles when people learn the truth, that he's just a man, fallible, weak, exactly like the rest of us. Leora studied the woman in front of her, saw the hatred there, old and deep. This wasn't just about power. This was personal. What did he do to you? She asked quietly. What didn't he do? Morgana's laugh was broken glass. I loved him once, years ago, before he learned to build walls. I thought we'd marry, rule together. But then that other girl happened, the one who betrayed him, and he closed off completely. Decided no one could be trusted, especially not women. So you decided to prove him right? I decided to take what should have been mine. Morgana's chains rattled as she shifted. But you ruined that. You with your innocent face and your helpful nature. You reminded him that people could be good, that not everyone was playing games, and he started to trust again, started to care. Understanding clicked into place. You're not angry because I saved him. You're angry because he actually likes me. He more than likes you, you stupid girl. He's falling for you. I can see it every time someone mentions your name, and that... Morgana's voice turned vicious. That I cannot allow. So you took his son. I took his weakness, his vulnerability, the one thing guaranteed to make him act irrationally. Morgana settled back against the stone. By now, he's probably already heading to the North Tower, walking into a trap because he can't help himself. The great king, brought down by sentiment. Leora's stomach dropped. He's not going to the North Tower. Isn't he? Morgana's smile returned. Are you sure? Because I know Ronan. Known him longer than you have, and he can't resist trying to save people. It's his greatest strength and his fatal flaw. You're wrong. Then why do you look so worried? Leora turned and ran, back through the dungeons, up the stairs, her lungs burning with exertion. She had to reach Ronan before Commander Garrett intercepted her in the main corridor. Have you seen His Majesty? I just left him. Why? He's gone. Took weapons and left through the eastern gate 20 minutes ago, alone. No, 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 no. He went to the North Tower, Leora said. How do you... Garrett's expression darkened. The kidnapping. He's trying to trade himself for the boy. We have to stop him. With what forces? Half my men are still processing prisoners from the coup. The other half are scattered throughout the castle on security detail. Garrett gripped her shoulders. Even if we mobilized everyone right now, we couldn't reach the North Tower before sunset. And if Ronan sees an army approaching, they'll kill the child immediately. Leora's mind raced. They needed an advantage. Something unexpected. The servant passages, she said suddenly. The hidden routes through the castle walls. Do any of them lead to the North Tower? I don't know. That's servant knowledge, not military. Then get me servants, now. Anyone who's worked in this castle long enough to know the passages. Garrett didn't question, just moved. Within minutes, a dozen servants stood in the corridor, looking nervous and confused. Leora recognized some from the kitchens. The North Tower, she said without preamble. Are there hidden passages that lead there? Servants' routes? Maintenance tunnels? Anything? An older woman stepped forward. There's a supply tunnel. Runs from the main storage cellars all the way to the tower's foundation. We used to use it for moving firewood in winter. Is it still accessible? Should be. Nobody's used it in years, but the entrance is still there. Show me. The woman, Marta, she said her name was, led them through the castle at a quick pace, down into storage areas Leora had never seen, through rooms stacked with supplies and forgotten furniture. Finally, behind a rack of empty barrels, a small door barely 3 feet high. This leads to the tunnel, Marta said, but it's narrow. You'll have to crawl most of the way. Leora looked at Garrett. How many men can you spare? For this? All of them. He turned to the guards who'd followed. Light torches. Spread the word. We're moving on the North Tower through underground approach. Small teams, quiet as possible. If they hear us coming, the mission fails. The guards scattered to mobilize. Garrett pulled Leora aside. You don't have to do this, he said. I can lead the assault. You've done enough. Kyle knows me. If I'm there when we find him, he'll be less scared. Leora checked the small knife still hidden in her sleeve. And I need to see this through. For Sarah, for the boy, for Ronan, Garrett finished. You care about him. It wasn't a question. Leora didn't answer anyway. Just keep him alive, she said. Please. I'll do my best. But the king's stubborn when he wants to be. I've noticed. They entered the tunnel in groups of 3, torches held low to avoid smoke buildup. The passage was exactly as Marta described. Narrow, cramped, full of cobwebs and the smell of old stone. Leora crawled on hands and knees, her shoulders scraping the walls, trying not to think about the tons of castle above her head. Time lost meaning in the dark. They crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably less than one. Finally, the tunnel widened into a small chamber. Stairs led upward. This comes out in the tower's lower storage room, Marta whispered. From there, you can access the main levels. Garrett organized his men with hand signals. 4 stayed back as reserves. 8 moved forward with him. Leora followed, her heart hammering. The stairs were stone, worn smooth by centuries of use. They climbed in silence, weapons ready. At the top, a heavy wooden door blocked their path. Garrett tested it carefully. Unlocked. He eased it open an inch, peering through. Storage room, like she said, empty. He opened it wider. Move. They filed into the room, a space filled with old furniture and moth-eaten tapestries. Voices drifted down from above. Male, arguing. Said he'd come alone. Where is he? Probably realized it's a trap and ran like the coward he is. The boy's been crying for hours. Should we gag him? Let him cry. Nobody's going to hear him up here. Leora's hands clenched. Kyle was alive. That was something. Garrett motioned his men into position. They'd come up through the tower's center stairwell, fast and brutal, overwhelming the kidnappers before they could react. Standard military assault. But Leora remembered Morgana's words. I have people everywhere, even in the guard. What if some of Garrett's men were compromised? What if the assault became a bloodbath because someone warned the enemy? She grabbed Garrett's arm, pulled him aside. How well do you know your men? Well enough. Why? Morgana said she had people throughout the castle, in the guard. What if... Understanding flashed in Garrett's eyes. He looked at his assembled soldiers, calculating. I've known most of these men for years. Fought beside them. But you're right. We can't risk it. Then we need a different approach. Such as? Leora thought fast. I go up alone, unarmed. Tell them I'm here to negotiate for the boy's release. That's insane. It's unexpected. They're waiting for Ronan or a military assault. They're not expecting a servant girl. She met his eyes. While I'm talking, distracting them, you move your men into position, but quietly. No attack until I signal. What signal? You'll know it when you see it. Garrett looked like he wanted to argue, but the voices above were getting louder, more agitated. They were running out of time. Fine, he said, but if anything goes wrong, then you storm in and save me. I know the drill. She left before he could object further, climbing the center stairs alone. Her footsteps echoed deliberately, announcing her presence. By the time she reached the main floor of the tower, 3 men were waiting for her, weapons drawn. Who the hell are you? The largest one demanded. Leora Hale. I'm here about the boy. Where's the king? Not coming. He sent me instead. She kept her hands visible, empty. He wants to negotiate terms. The men exchanged glances. We don't negotiate with servants. Then you don't get what you want. Leora kept her voice steady. King Ronan knows this is a trap. He's not stupid enough to walk into it. But he does want his son back. So here's what's going to happen. You tell me what you want in exchange for the boy, I relay it to the king, and we work something out that doesn't end with all of you dead. His son? One of the other men laughed. Someone's been telling tales. Someone's been paying attention. Leora took a step forward. The boy has the king's eyes, his face. Anyone who looks closely can see it, which means he has value as a hostage. but only if he stays alive and unharmed. Hurt him and you lose your leverage. Kill him and you're all dead within the hour. The largest man, clearly the leader, considered this. What's the king offering? Safe passage out of Arkenfell. Money. New identities in the southern territories. Leora was making it up as she went. But first I need to see the boy. Need to confirm he's alive and well. Why should we trust you? Why should I trust you? But here we are. She crossed her arms. Show me the boy, or this conversation is over. Another exchange of glances. Then the leader jerked his head toward the stairs. Upstairs, top floor, but try anything, and we'll throw him off the tower before you can blink. Leora climbed. Her legs shook with each step, but she kept moving. Behind her, she could hear the men following, weapons ready. The top floor was a single large room with windows on all sides. Kale sat in the corner, hands bound, his face streaked with tears. When he saw Leora, his eyes went wide. Dangerous lady, he whispered. Despite everything, Leora almost smiled. Hey kid, you okay? They said they were taking me to see my father, but then they tied me up and... His voice broke. I want my mother. I know. I'm going to get you out of here. She turned to the leader. Untie him. No. How am I supposed to assess his condition if he's bound? What if you've hurt him? The king needs to know he's getting his son back intact. Grudgingly, the leader cut Kale's bonds. The boy immediately ran to Leora, wrapped his arms around her waist. She held him, one hand stroking his hair, the other slipping the small knife from her sleeve. It's okay, she murmured. I've got you. Enough. The leader grabbed Kale's shoulder, yanking him back. You've seen him. Now get out and tell the king our terms. Leora moved. Not at the leader, at the window. She threw herself against the glass with all her weight. It shattered, her momentum carrying her halfway through before gravity took over. She grabbed the window frame, hanging on by her fingertips, her legs dangling over empty air. Help! She screamed at the top of her lungs. North Tower, they've got the king's son. The signal. Below, she heard shouting, saw guards pouring out of the castle, converging on the tower. Garrett's men would be storming up the stairs right now, moving fast while the kidnappers were distracted by her dramatic exit. Strong hands grabbed her arms, hauled her back inside. The leader's face was purple with rage. You stupid! Boots thundered on the stairs. Garrett exploded into the room with 8 guards, weapons drawn. Drop your weapons! Chaos. The kidnappers tried to fight, but it was over in seconds. Garrett's men were trained soldiers. The kidnappers were hired thugs. The outcome was never in doubt. Leora crawled away from the broken window, her hands bleeding from the glass. Kyle ran to her again, and this time she held on tight. You came, he said, crying into her shoulder. You actually came. Of course I came. I promised your mother I'd bring you home. Is my father really the king? Leora looked at him, at those gray eyes, that stubborn chin. Yeah, kid. He really is. Does he know about me? He does now. Garrett finished securing the prisoners, then crossed to Leora. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Did it work? You're alive. The boy's safe. I'd call that a success. He helped her to her feet. Can you walk? Probably. Good. Because we need to find Ronan before he does something equally stupid. They descended the tower, Kyle between them, holding both their hands. Outside, the courtyard was organized chaos. Guards everywhere, servants gathering to see what the commotion was about, nobles emerging from the castle to demand explanations. And standing in the middle of it all, bleeding from a fresh wound on his arm, was Ronan. He saw Kyle. Stopped mid-sentence in whatever order he was giving. His eyes went to the boy, then to Leora, then back to Kyle. Your Majesty, Garrett said formally. The boy is secure. The kidnappers are in custody. Ronan didn't answer. He was staring at Kyle like he was seeing a ghost. Kyle, for his part, stared back with equal intensity. You're taller than I thought you'd be, the boy said finally. A shocked laugh escaped Ronan. You're braver than I expected. My mother says I get that from my father. Silence. The entire courtyard seemed to hold its breath. Ronan knelt slowly, bringing himself to eye level with the child. What's your name? Kael Thane. Sir. Your Majesty. The boy stumbled over the titles, not sure which to use. Just Kyle is fine. Ronan's voice was gentle. Do you know who I am? The dangerous lady says you're my father. The dangerous lady is very smart. Ronan glanced up at Leora, something raw in his expression. And yes, I'm your father. I didn't know about you until today, but his voice caught. I'm glad I do now. Kale tilted his head, studying Ronan with a child's directness. Are you going to send me away? What? No. Why would I? Because I'm a bastard. Mother says bastards don't get to stay in castles. Your mother is wrong about that. Ronan reached out slowly, giving Kyle time to pull away. When he didn't, Ronan's hand settled on the boy's shoulder. You're my son. That means you belong here. With me. If you want to. What about Mother? She belongs here too. Both of you. I promise. Kyle considered this. Then, with the pragmatism of an 8-year-old, he asked, Do I have to call you father, or can I just call you Ronan? You can call me whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, Ronan. Kale paused. Do you know how to read? Yes? Good. Because I have a lot of questions about the books in the library, and the tutors won't talk to me because I'm just a servant's kid. Something in Ronan's expression cracked. He pulled Kyle into a hug, careful, uncertain, like he wasn't sure he had the right. Kale hugged back fiercely. The courtyard remained silent. Nobles exchanged shocked glances. Servants whispered behind their hands, and Leora watched the Alpha King hold his son for the first time, her throat tight with emotions she couldn't name. Garrett stepped beside her. You did good today. We all did. No, you did this. You saved the boy. Stopped a kidnapping. Gave Ronan his son. Garrett's voice was quiet. The court is going to lose their minds over this. Let them. Leora was too tired to care about politics. Ronan stood, Kyle's hand in his. His eyes found Leora's across the courtyard. We need to talk, he said. We do, she agreed. He handed Kale to Garrett. Take him to find his mother, and double the guard on both of them until we've rooted out the rest of Morgana's people. Your Majesty. Garrett led Kale away, the boy looking back over his shoulder at Ronan with undisguised curiosity. Ronan crossed to Leora. Up close, she could see the exhaustion on his face, the blood on his sleeve, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on his shoulders. You're hurt, she said, gesturing to his arm. Ran into some of Morgana's people on the way to the North Tower. Took care of it. His eyes searched her face. You went into a hostage situation alone. I had backup. You hung out of a window 4 stories above the ground. It was the signal. It was insane. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Don't ever do that again. No promises. Leora, I know, I'm reckless and stupid, and I don't think things through. She put her hands over his. But we got Kyle back. He's safe. That's what matters. That's part of what matters. Ronan's forehead touched hers, his breath warm against her skin. The other part is you. You matter. You can't keep throwing yourself into danger like you're disposable. I'm not. You are. To yourself. You act like your life has no value unless you're saving someone else. His voice went rough. But it has value to me. You have value to me. And I can't. He stopped, seemed to wrestle with words. I can't lose you. Not now. Not after everything. Leora's heart did that complicated thing again. Ronan, I know you wanted freedom. Wanted to leave when this was over. And I'll honor that if it's still what you want. But I need you to know. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. I need you to know that somewhere along the way, you became important to me. More important than anyone has been in a very long time. And the thought of you walking away, I'm not walking away. The words came out before she'd fully decided. But once they were out, Leora knew they were true. I'm not walking away, she repeated. I thought I wanted freedom. Wanted to escape this place and everyone in it. But that was before. Before Kyle. Before all of this. Before... She touched his face. Before you. You don't have to stay for me. I'm not staying for you. I'm staying for me. Because for the first time in years, I feel like I belong somewhere. Like I matter beyond just being useful. She smiled despite the tears forming. And yeah, maybe you're part of that. Maybe I care about the stubborn, broken king who keeps almost dying. Is that so terrible? It's the best thing I've heard in years, Ronan said, and kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative. It was fierce and desperate and tasted like blood and hope and everything they'd survived to get to this moment. Leora kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. Somewhere nearby, someone cleared their throat pointedly. They broke apart. Sarah stood a few feet away, Kyle at her side, her expression unreadable. I heard, she said quietly, about what you told him, about Kyle. Sarah, Ronan started. No. Let me speak. She stepped forward, her chin raised. 8 years ago, you were drugged. I helped you, and afterward, when the drug was still in your system, She stopped, started again. I tried to tell you the next day, but you didn't remember. And then Lady Morgana started spreading rumors about me, saying I'd seduced you on purpose, and I was thrown out of the castle before I could explain. I didn't know, Ronan said. If I'd known, what would you have done? Believed a servant over a noblewoman? You didn't trust anyone back then. You barely trust anyone now. Sarah's voice softened. I don't blame you, Ronan. I never did. But that boy... She touched Kyle's shoulder. He deserved better than growing up thinking he was fatherless. Deserved better than scraping by on a servant's wages. You're right. And I'm sorry. Ronan looked at Kyle, then back at Sarah. I can't change the past, but I can make sure the future is different for both of you. You'll never want for anything again. I give you my word. I don't want your money, Sarah said. I want my son to know his father, to have a chance at a real life. Can you give us that? Yes. No hesitation. Both of you, you're under my protection now. Anyone who threatens you answers to me. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded once, sharp. Good. Because he has questions, a lot of them, about everything. I can do questions. Can you do bedtime stories? Because he won't sleep without one. Ronan looked genuinely panicked. I don't know any bedtime stories. Then you'd better learn fast. But Sarah was almost smiling. Come on, Kyle, let's get you cleaned up. You can interrogate your father at dinner. Can Leora come too? Kyle asked. The dangerous lady? I'm standing right here, kid. You can ask me directly. Kale turned to her, solemn. Can you come to dinner, please? I want to tell you about the books I've been reading. How was she supposed to say no to that? I'll be there, Leora promised. Sarah led Kyle away, the boy chattering about something that had happened in the library. Ronan watched them go, his expression complicated. I have a son, he said quietly. You do. A son I didn't know about for 8 years because I was too damaged to trust anyone. You were betrayed badly. It made sense to build walls. The walls nearly cost me everything. He looked at her. Nearly cost me him. And you. But they didn't. We're all still here. For now. Ronan's hands clenched. But Morgana's network is still out there. Whoever took Kyle, they're just one cell. There will be others, more attempts, more threats. Then we deal with them. Together. Leora took his hand. You don't have to do this alone anymore. I don't know how to do it any other way. Learn. She squeezed his fingers. Start by actually attending that dinner your son invited us to. One step at a time. Ronan laughed, real and startled. One step at a time. Right. Around them, the castle continued its evening routines. Servants lit torches as sunset approached. Guards changed shifts. The aftermath of the coup slowly transformed into something resembling normalcy. But Leora could feel the shift, could sense that something fundamental had changed in Arkenfell. The Alpha King had a son, had admitted it publicly, had shown vulnerability. And instead of weakness, it looked like strength. People were watching them, nobles whispering in corners, servants casting curious glances. The entire castle was recalculating, reassessing what this meant for the future. They're all staring, Ronan murmured. Let them stare. You've given them something to talk about besides coups and poisonings. I've given them ammunition. But he didn't let go of her hand. A bastard heir, a servant mistress. Morgana's people will use this. Then we'll be ready when they do. Leora turned to face him fully. Ronan, look at me. You spent 15 years protecting yourself by trusting no one, and it nearly destroyed you. Maybe it's time to try something different. Like what? Like trusting that the people who've proven themselves Garrett, Sarah, Kale, me actually have your back. Like believing that showing humanity isn't the same as showing weakness. Like letting yourself be a father instead of just a king. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, that terrifies me. I know, do it anyway. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's impossible and messy and probably going to blow up in our faces. Leora smiled. But it's better than the alternative, which is dying alone in your perfect fortress, never having lived at all. Ronan pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. Stay, he said into her hair. Not just tonight. Not just until the next crisis. Stay. Leora let herself lean into him, let herself feel the warmth and solidity of another person actually caring whether she existed. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Above them, the first stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the castle, a child was learning he had a father. A mother was learning she didn't have to survive alone anymore. And a king was learning that the walls he'd built to protect himself had become his prison. But walls could be torn down, trust could be rebuilt. And sometimes, the dangerous ladies of the world saved more than just lives. Sometimes they saved souls. Dinner that night was the strangest meal Leora had ever attended. The king's private dining hall was smaller than the Great Hall, but no less intimidating. Rich wood paneling, crystal chandeliers, a table long enough to seat 20, though tonight only 5 chairs were occupied. Ronan sat at the head, Kael to his right, wide-eyed and fidgeting. Sarah to his left, spine straight and clearly uncomfortable. Leora beside Kael, trying not to think about the fact that she was eating at the king's table wearing a borrowed dress because her own clothes were still covered in blood and glass. Garrett stood by the door, theoretically on guard duty but mostly watching the proceedings with barely concealed amusement. So, Kael said, poking at his roasted chicken, do you actually wear a crown all the time or just for special occasions? Ronan paused mid-drink. Special occasions, mostly. Can I try it on? Kael? Sarah said quietly. That's not appropriate. Why not? He's my father. Fathers share things with their sons, right? The boy looked at Ronan hopefully. The books in the library say so. The books aren't wrong. Ronan set down his goblet. After dinner, I'll show you the crown. You can try it on if you want. Kael's face lit up. Sarah looked like she wanted to object but didn't know how. Your Majesty, she started. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Ronan's voice was gentle but firm. I missed 8 years. Every birthday, every milestone, every question about why he didn't have a father. I can't get those back, but I can make sure he knows he matters, starting now. Sarah's eyes went bright with unshed tears. She nodded once, looked down at her plate. Leora caught Ronan's gaze across the table. He looked terrified and determined in equal measure, like a man facing down an enemy army with only hope as a weapon. She smiled slightly. He smiled back. Leora, Kael said, pulling her attention, tell my father about how you threw a knife at that man, the one who was going to shoot him. I missed, mostly. But you tried. That's what counts. Kael turned to Ronan. She's very brave and smart. She knew exactly what to give me when I was sick. Mother says she saved my life. I know she did. Ronan's eyes hadn't left Leora. She seems to make a habit of saving people. Someone has to, Leora said. You all keep almost dying. Garrett snorted from his position by the door. Sarah hid a smile behind her napkin. Even Ronan's mouth twitched. The rest of the meal passed in fits and starts of conversation. Kael asked approximately 700 questions about everything from battle tactics to what the king ate for breakfast. Sarah gradually relaxed enough to actually eat. And Ronan looked at his son like he was memorizing every detail, every gesture, every word, every moment, like he was afraid it might disappear. When dessert was cleared, Ronan kept his promise. He led them to his private chambers, unlocked an ornate cabinet, and withdrew the crown of Arkenfell. It wasn't delicate, wasn't pretty. It was iron and steel worked into harsh angles, set with stones the color of winter storms. A crown for a warrior kingdom. Kael reached for it with reverence. It's heavy. Leadership usually is. Ronan placed it on the boy's head carefully. It was far too large, slipping down over Kael's ears, but the child's grin was infectious. I look like a king! He ran to the mirror, admiring his reflection. You look like trouble, Leora corrected, but she was smiling. Trouble runs in the family, Garrett observed. Sarah moved to Ronan's side. Thank you, she said quietly, for this, for all of it. You don't have to thank me for being a father to my own son. Maybe not, but I'm thanking you anyway. She hesitated. I never wanted to keep him from you. I just didn't know how to... I know, and I don't blame you. I blame the system that made you afraid to speak. The culture that would have punished you for my mistake. Ronan's jaw tightened. That changes now, starting tomorrow. What changes? Everything. The council meeting 3 days later was packed. Every noble in Arkenfell who could travel had descended on the castle, summoned by urgent decree. They filled the council chamber to capacity, whispering among themselves, speculating about what the king would announce. Leora watched from the shadows near the back, technically not allowed in the room, but present anyway because Ronan had insisted. Garrett stood beside her, arms crossed. This is either going to be brilliant or catastrophic, he murmured. Why not both? That's what I'm afraid of. The chamber quieted as Ronan entered. He'd dressed for this, full royal regalia, the crown of Arkenfell on his head, every inch the Alpha King. But there was something different in his bearing, less isolated, more present. He took his place at the head of the council table and surveyed the room. Thank you all for coming on short notice, he began. I know there's been speculation about the purpose of this gathering, about recent events, about changes to come. So let me be direct. The room held its breath. 8 years ago, during a diplomatic feast, I was drugged. A servant named Sarah Thane helped save my life that night. In my compromised state, He paused, choosing words carefully. Conceived a child, a son. I did not know of his existence until recently. Gasps, shocked whispers. One nobleman stood abruptly. Your Majesty, surely you're not suggesting... I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. Ronan's voice cut through the noise. The boy's name is Kael. He is my son, and as of today, he is my acknowledged heir. The chamber exploded. A bastard cannot inherit. This is unprecedented. The council will do as I command. Ronan's words weren't loud, but they silenced the room. I am the Alpha King. The throne is mine to pass to whomever I choose, and I choose my son. Lord Blackthorn, one of the few nobles who'd remained loyal throughout the coup, stood slowly. Your Majesty, while I support you, we must consider the implications. A bastard heir will be challenged at every turn. The succession will be secured by law. Ronan gestured to a clerk who began distributing documents. I've had new legislation drafted. It states clearly that any child of my blood, legitimate or not, has claim to the throne of Arkenfell. It also provides protections for the child's mother and grants her full noble status. More gasps. Sarah, sitting in a chair Ronan had insisted she occupy despite her protests, had gone very pale. You can't make a servant into a noble, someone objected. I can do whatever I want. I'm the king. Ronan's eyes were hard. But more than that, I'm righting a wrong. Sarah Thane was cast out 8 years ago because of rumors and lies, because this court values appearances over truth. That ends now. Your Majesty. Another noble tried to speak. I'm not finished. Ronan's hand came down on the table. For too long, this kingdom has operated on fear and suspicion, on the idea that strength means isolation, that trust is weakness. I built those walls myself, and they nearly destroyed me. The room had gone silent again. Leora felt her heart racing. But recently I've been reminded that strength comes from different sources, from people who help without expecting reward, from those who speak truth even when it's dangerous, from individuals who refuse to let fear dictate their choices. His eyes found Leora's across the room. This kingdom was built on violence. Maybe it's time we tried building it on something else. Such as? Lord Blackthorn asked, genuinely curious. Accountability. Justice. The idea that a person's worth isn't determined by their birth. Ronan straightened. I'm implementing new laws. Servants will have the right to petition for redress of grievances. Nobles who abuse their positions will face consequences. And anyone who tries to harm my family will answer to me personally. You're talking about revolution, someone said from the back. I'm talking about evolution. We adapt or we die. And Arkenfell has been dying for a long time. Ronan surveyed the room. Those of you who can't accept these changes are free to leave. Take your lands and your titles and go. But if you stay, you follow my laws. All of them, without exception. Silence. Then Lord Blackthorn stood. I stand with the king. One by one, other nobles rose. Not all of them. Some remained seated, faces dark with anger, but enough, more than enough. The vote, Ronan said. All in favor of the new succession law and accompanying reforms? Hands raised. Leora counted quickly, 23 out of 35. Opposed? 12 hands. The measure passes. Ronan's voice was steady. Kyle Varric is hereby recognized as my legitimate heir. Sarah Thane is granted the title of Lady Thane and all rights thereof. And this council is dismissed. The nobles filed out, some congratulating Ronan, others leaving in stony silence. The ones who'd voted against the measures departed quickly, probably to plot resistance. Let them plot, Leora thought. They'd lost. When the room had cleared except for Ronan, Garrett, Sarah, and Leora, the king finally allowed himself to sag slightly. That went better than expected, Garrett said. Or worse, half of them are planning my assassination as we speak. Only half? You're getting soft. But Garrett was smiling. You did well. That took courage. That took Leora. Ronan looked at her. None of this happens without you. I didn't do anything except throw a knife badly and hang out a window. You reminded me what matters. That's everything. He turned to Sarah. Lady Thane, how does it feel? Terrifying, Sarah admitted. I don't know how to be a noble. Neither do most of them. You'll fit right in. Ronan's expression softened. Kael's in the library with his tutors. Actual tutors now, not the ones who ignored him. He's probably driving them crazy with questions. He's good at that. Sarah stood, gathering her new noble's gown awkwardly. I should check on him, make sure he hasn't started a fire or something equally disastrous. She left. Garrett made a show of checking the door locks, then followed her out, giving Ronan and Leora privacy. Alone, the silence felt different, heavier. You changed everything today, Leora said finally. We changed everything. Together. Ronan crossed to where she stood, took her hands. I meant what I said in there, about you reminding me what matters. I just did what anyone would. No. You did what you would do, what you've always done. You saw someone in pain and helped them, regardless of the cost to yourself. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. You saved my life 4 times now, 5 if you count saving me from myself. I lost count after 3. I didn't. His eyes were intense. And I need to ask you something. Something I have no right to ask, but I'm asking anyway. Leora's heart kicked against her ribs. What? Stay, not as a servant, not as a court healer, as... He seemed to struggle with the words. As my equal, my partner, the person I trust more than anyone else in this entire kingdom. Ronan, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks. I know I'm broken and difficult, and I come with an 8-year-old son in a kingdom full of enemies. The words tumbled out in a rush. But I also know that when I think about the future, you're in it. And when I think about losing you, I can't breathe. Leora stared at him. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm asking you to marry me. He said it plainly, no flourish. Not because of politics or duty or anything except that I want you in my life. Every day, in every way. That's insane. Probably. The court will riot. Let them. I'm a nobody, a servant girl with no family, no lands, no training in how to be a queen. You're Leora Hale, the woman who saved a king, rescued a child, and faced down a coup with nothing but courage and a badly thrown knife. Ronan's hands tightened on hers. That's more qualifications than most queens ever have. And I don't want a politician or a noblewoman. I want you. Why? Because you see me. Not the crown or the power or the reputation, just me. And for the first time in 15 years, that's enough. His voice dropped. Please, say yes. Leora's mind spun. This was crazy. Marrying a king, becoming a queen, stepping into a role she'd never imagined. The court would fight her at every turn. Morgana's remaining allies would try to destroy her. She'd be a target for the rest of her life. But when she looked at Ronan, she didn't see the Alpha King. She saw a man who'd learned to trust again because she'd refused to let him hide. She saw a father trying desperately to connect with the son he'd never known. She saw someone who'd spent years alone and was finally brave enough to ask for something more. She saw someone worth fighting for. "Yes," she said. "I'll marry you." Relief flooded his face. He pulled her into a kiss that tasted like hope and new beginnings and all the impossibilities they'd survived to get here. When they broke apart, Leora was laughing despite the tears on her cheeks. "We're both insane," she said. "Completely." Ronan rested his forehead against hers. "But we'll be insane together." "That's not actually reassuring. It's the best I can offer." "Then I guess it'll have to do." Take it. The wedding was planned for a month later, which Leora thought was absurdly fast, and Ronan thought was agonizingly slow. The intervening weeks were chaos. Leora had to learn courtly etiquette, a process that made her want to throw things. How to walk, how to sit, how to address nobles by their proper titles, how to eat without making anyone faint from impropriety. She failed at most of it. "You're holding your fork wrong," the etiquette instructor said for the 15th time. "I'm holding it like I've held forks my entire life." That's the problem. Kale, attending the same lessons because Ronan had insisted, leaned over. "I think she's holding it fine. Food gets to your mouth either way." "Exactly," Leora said. "The boy has wisdom." "The boy is 8, the instructor said wearily. "Neither of you are taking this seriously." "We're taking it as seriously as it deserves," Kyle replied, which made Leora burst into laughter. The instructor gave up and left. "You're a bad influence on him," Sarah said from the doorway, but she was smiling. "He's a bad influence on me first." Leora stood, stretching muscles sore from sitting in uncomfortable chairs. "How are the noble lessons going for you?" "About as well as your etiquette lessons." Sarah entered the room, still moving with the slight hesitation of someone not used to belonging in noble spaces. "Lady Helena invited me to tea yesterday. Spent the entire hour explaining why servants turned nobles are ruining the kingdom's integrity." "What did you do?" "Smiled and drank my tea, then accidentally spilled it on her dress." Sarah's smile turned sharp. "Very accidentally." "That's my girl." They'd become friends over the past weeks, bonded by their shared outsider status. Two women who'd been servants, now navigating noble politics with varying degrees of success and sabotage. Kyle had been accepted more easily, probably because he was 8 and charming and asked endless questions that made even stern nobles laugh. He split his time between tutors, the library, and following Ronan around like a devoted shadow. The king, for his part, seemed equally devoted to learning fatherhood. Leora had walked in on them reading together more than once. Ronan struggling through children's adventure stories with the same intensity he brought to military strategy. It was adorable and slightly heartbreaking. "Have you thought about what you'll say?" Sarah asked, pulling Leora from her thoughts. "Say when?" "At the ceremony. The wedding. You're supposed to make vows." "I'll say I do. That's the vow, right? There's usually more to it than that." "Why?" "Either you commit or you don't. Everything else is just words." Sarah shook her head. "You and Ronan deserve each other. You're both terrible at sentiment. We're practical. You're emotionally stunted." "That too." They laughed. Kyle looked up from the book he'd been reading. "When you marry my father, does that make you my mother?" The question stopped Leora cold. She looked at Sarah, who looked equally uncertain. "I'm your mother," Sarah said carefully. "That doesn't change." "I know, but can't I have 2? Kale's gray eyes were serious. "Lots of kids have 2 mothers, or 2 fathers, or grandparents who raised them. Why can't I have both of you?" Leora's throat went tight. "If that's what you want, then yes, you can have both of us." "Good." Kale returned to his book like he hadn't just rearranged their entire family structure. "I'm glad that's settled." Sarah wiped her eyes. Leora did the same. They didn't speak, but their hands found each other and held on tight. The day before the wedding, Leora visited Morgana. The former lady was thinner, paler, her fine clothes replaced with prison rags, but her eyes still burned with hatred. "Come to gloat?" Morgana asked when Leora entered the cell. "Come to understand." Leora stayed near the door. "You had everything. Power, status, wealth. Why risk it all?" "Because having everything means nothing if you're alone." Morgana's laugh was bitter. "You wouldn't understand. You stumbled into love and acceptance. I fought for it my entire life, and got nothing." So you decided if you couldn't have it, no one could. I decided the world owed me better than scraps. Morgana leaned forward. How does it feel? Knowing you won by accident? You didn't scheme or plan or sacrifice. You just existed and everything fell into your lap. It doesn't feel like winning, Leora said honestly. It feels like surviving, which is all I've ever done. Survival. Morgana spat the word. Is that what you call stealing a king? I didn't steal anything. He chose me. He chose a fantasy. A simple girl who makes him feel like a hero. But you know what happens to fantasies, don't you? Morgana's smile was cruel. They end. And when this one does, when he realizes you're just as flawed and broken as everyone else, he'll cast you aside too. Maybe, Leora met her eyes steadily, but at least I'll have tried. At least I won't die alone in a cell, eaten alive by my own bitterness. She left before Morgana could respond. In the corridor, Garrett waited. Did you get what you came for? I don't know. Maybe. Leora leaned against the wall. She's right about one thing. I didn't earn this. I just survived. Surviving is earning it. Garrett's voice was firm. You think half the nobles in this castle earned their positions? They were born into them, inherited them. But you fought for every inch, saved lives, changed minds. That's worth more than any bloodline. You really believe that? I've served this kingdom for 20 years. I've seen leaders come and go, and I've never seen anyone transform Ronan the way you have. Garrett's hand settled on her shoulder. So yes, I believe it. And tomorrow, when you stand in front of the entire court, you need to believe it too. The wedding day dawned clear and cold. Leora woke before sunrise, her stomach a knot of nerves. Sarah and a team of attendants descended on her room, transforming her into something she barely recognized. The dress was simple by noble standards. White silk without excessive embroidery, clean lines that suited her better than the fussy gowns she'd tried on. Her hair was arranged in a style that took an hour and hurt her scalp, but looked admittedly beautiful. You clean up well, Sarah said, adjusting the veil. I look like someone else. You look like a queen. That's what I said. Someone else. Sarah turned her toward the mirror. Look, really look. Leora did, and saw herself. The same gray eyes, the same determined chin, but also something new. Confidence, maybe. Or just the acceptance that she'd survived enough to earn her place here. Okay, she admitted. Maybe I look a little like a queen. A lot like a queen. Now come on. You've got a kingdom waiting. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, the same place Ronan had nearly died weeks ago. Now it was decorated with winter flowers and candles, transformed from a battlefield into something almost beautiful. The court had gathered in full force. Nobles in their finest clothes, servants lining the walls, Kael in the front row, fidgeting in his new formal attire but grinning widely. And at the end of the hall, standing before the throne, was Ronan. He wore black and silver, his crown catching the candlelight. When he saw her, his expression shifted into something raw and unguarded, like she was the only person in the room. Leora walked down the aisle alone. No father to give her away, no family to witness, just her, making the choice to step forward into this new life. When she reached Ronan, he took her hands. You're shaking, he murmured, terrified. Me too. You're the king. You're not supposed to be scared. I'm a man about to marry the woman he loves. I'm absolutely terrified. The officiant cleared his throat. They turned to face him, hands still joined. The vows were traditional. Promises of loyalty, commitment, partnership. Leora said them and meant them, each word a choice to stay, to fight, to build something new. When it was Ronan's turn, he started with the traditional words, then stopped. These vows are old, he said, written for a different time. For political marriages and alliances, they don't fit us. The officiant looked panicked. Your Majesty, the ceremony can survive a modification. Ronan's eyes found Leora's. I, Ronan Varric, promise you honesty even when it's hard. I promise to trust you even when every instinct tells me to hide. I promise to be a partner, not just a king. And I promise to remind you every day that you matter, that you're not just someone who survived, you're someone who changed everything. Silence. The court was frozen, shocked by the departure from tradition. Leora's eyes were burning. I, Leora Hale, promise you the same. Honesty, trust, partnership, And I promise to keep saving your life when you do stupid things. Because you will. You're stubborn and reckless, and you think you can fix everything alone. But you can't, so I'll be here. Every time. Someone in the crowd laughed. Then others joined in. The tension broke. The officiant, recovering, pronounced them married. Ronan kissed her, thorough and public and completely improper by court standards. The hall erupted in applause. Kael was the first to reach them, launching himself at Ronan with enough force to nearly knock them both over. "You're married. Does this mean we're a real family now?" "We were always a real family," Ronan said, scooping him up. "This just makes it official. Can I still call Leora the dangerous lady?" "Only if she lets you." Kael looked at Leora hopefully. She ruffled his hair. "Dangerous lady is fine, but you can also call me Leora. Or, if you want, you can call me whatever feels right to you." The boy considered this seriously. "I'll think about it. It's a big decision." "Take your time." Sarah appeared, eyes bright with tears. "Congratulations, both of you." "We're family now," Leora said. "All of us. Whether the court likes it or not." "The court can adapt or leave," Ronan said firmly. "Those are the options." Around them, nobles approached to offer congratulations. Some genuine, some forced. Lord Blackthorn pumped Ronan's hand enthusiastically. Lady Helena managed polite words through gritted teeth. Others maintained careful neutrality. But the servants were smiling, whispering among themselves. Leora caught fragments of conversation. "One of us on the throne. Maybe things really will change. She saved the king's life 4 times. Dangerous lady." That last phrase made her smile. Apparently Kael's nickname had spread. The feast afterward was elaborate, with more food than anyone could possibly eat. Leora sat beside Ronan at the high table, Kael on her other side, Sarah nearby. A family constructed from impossible circumstances and stubborn hope. "Your Majesty," a messenger interrupted, bowing low. "There's news from the Southern Territories. Lord Thaddeus has been captured. He's being brought back to stand trial." The hall quieted. Ronan stood. "Then he'll face justice. Public trial. Full accounting of his crimes." His eyes swept the room. "Let it be known, anyone who threatens this kingdom, who uses poison or conspiracy or violence against its people, will answer for it. No exceptions. No mercy." Murmurs of approval. Even the nobles who'd opposed the reforms seemed satisfied by this. Ronan sat back down, took Leora's hand. One more enemy dealt with. "How many more are out there?" "Too many. But we'll handle them." He squeezed her fingers. "Together." The feast continued into the night. Music played, people danced. Kael fell asleep at the table, his head on Leora's shoulder. Sarah covered him with her shawl. "He's exhausted," she said. "Should I take him to bed?" "Let him sleep," Ronan said. "He's happy here. Let him be happy." So they sat, an unconventional family in the middle of a celebration that was part wedding, part revolution, part promise of something new. Later, when the crowd had thinned and only close allies remained, Garrett approached the high table. "Your Majesty, Your Highness." He bowed formally, but his eyes were warm. "I have something for you both." He presented a document sealed with the royal crest. Ronan broke the seal, read quickly, then looked up in surprise. "You're naming Leora as co-regent?" "In the event of your death or incapacitation, someone needs to rule until Kael comes of age. The council agreed, unanimously, actually, that Leora is the best choice." Garrett's smile was slight. "Apparently saving the king's life multiple times earns you credibility." Leora stared at the document. "I don't know how to rule a kingdom." "You know how to make hard choices, how to prioritize lives over politics, how to see people instead of just power." Garrett's voice was serious. "That's more than most rulers ever learn. The rest, you'll figure out." "This is insane, and I say, that seems to be your specialty," Ronan said, but he was smiling. "What do you say? Ready to co-rule Arkenfell?" "I'm barely ready to be married." "That's not a no." Leora looked at the document, at her name written in formal script beside Ronan's, at the future stretching out before her, impossible and terrifying and somehow right. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." 6 months later, Leora stood on the castle walls at sunrise, watching her kingdom wake. Her kingdom. The words still felt strange. Below, servants moved through the courtyard. Guards changed shifts. In the distance, farmers were already working their fields, preparing for harvest. Changes had come slowly but steadily. New laws protecting servant rights, reforms to the justice system, programs to help those in poverty. Not everyone was happy. Several noble families had left Arkenfell entirely, unwilling to adapt, but others had stayed, had even embraced the changes. The kingdom was transforming. "You're up early," Ronan's voice came from behind her. She turned. He looked tired. They'd been up late reviewing reports from the southern territories, but content. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Worried?" "Always. But it's a different kind of worry now." She leaned into him when he wrapped his arms around her. Less about survival, more about doing things right. "We're doing our best. That's all anyone can ask." "Is it enough?" "I think so. Look." He pointed toward the courtyard. "See that? People going about their lives, not afraid, not constantly looking over their shoulders. That's because of what we built." "What we're building," Leora corrected, "it's not finished." "It'll never be finished. That's the point. We keep working, keep improving, keep trying." They stood in silence, watching the sun climb higher. "Kael asked me yesterday if he has to be king," Ronan said eventually. "What did you tell him?" "That he has a choice, always. But that leadership isn't about power. It's about responsibility, about using whatever influence you have to help people." "How'd he take it?" "Said he'd think about it. Then asked if being king meant he could make cookies mandatory at every meal." Leora laughed. "That boy is going to be either a great leader or a complete disaster." "Probably both." Ronan's arms tightened around her. "Sarah's pregnant." The statement came from nowhere. Leora spun to face him. "What?" "Found out yesterday. She's scared, happy, completely overwhelmed. I told her we'd support her. Whatever she needs." "Of course we will. She's family." Leora's mind was already racing. "Does she know who the father is?" "One of the guards. Good man, apparently. He's already proposed. She's considering it. She should marry if she wants to, but not because she thinks she has to." "That's what I told her." Ronan's expression was soft. "We're building something different here, a place where people have choices, where servants can become nobles, where bastards can inherit thrones, where dangerous ladies can become queens?" "Especially that." He kissed her forehead. "How are you feeling?" The question was loaded. Leora had been sick for the past week. Nothing serious, just nausea in the mornings. She thought it was stress, until the physician had examined her yesterday and delivered news that changed everything again. "I'm pregnant," she said quietly. Ronan went very still. "You're... what?" "Pregnant. About 2 months along, the physician thinks." She searched his face. "I was going to tell you last night, but we got distracted by those reports. And then Kael wanted help with his reading, and then we're having a baby." The words came out wondering, almost disbelieving. "We're having a baby." He picked her up, spinning her in a circle despite her laughing protests. When he set her down, his eyes were bright. "Another child. Another chance to do it right from the beginning." His hands went to her stomach, still flat but somehow different. "Boy or girl?" "Too early to know. Does it matter?" "Not even a little." He knelt suddenly, pressing his ear to her stomach. "Can you hear anything?" "Ronan, it's the size of a bean right now. Still, our bean." Leora ran her fingers through his hair, her heart so full it hurt. "Our bean." They stayed like that, the Alpha King kneeling before his queen on the castle walls, the kingdom spread out below them like a promise. A promise that had started with poison and suspicion and walls so high they blocked out the light. A promise that had transformed through courage and stubbornness and the radical idea that people were worth trusting. A promise that was still being written, one choice at a time. That evening, Ronan called another council meeting. The nobles gathered with their usual mix of curiosity and wariness. Changes had become common enough that they no longer caused panic, but people were still cautious. Ronan stood before them, Leora at his side. Kael sat in the front row, swinging his legs and looking pleased with himself for being included. "Thank you all for coming," Ronan began. "I have 2 announcements. First, Lord Thaddeus's trial concluded today. He was found guilty of attempted murder, conspiracy, and treason. The sentence is execution at dawn." No one objected. Thaddeus's crimes were well documented and damning. Second, Ronan continued, Queen Leora is pregnant. An heir will be born in approximately 7 months. The hall erupted in applause. Even the nobles who'd been resistant to Leora's elevation seemed pleased by this news. A direct heir secured the succession, removed uncertainty. But Ronan wasn't finished. This child will be born legitimate, but that doesn't change Kael's status. He remains my acknowledged heir. When I die, the throne passes to him, regardless of any other children who may come. His voice was firm. This is not negotiable. Kael is my firstborn son. He will be king after me. Murmurs. Some approving, some uncertain. But no one dared object openly. Kael, for his part, looked mildly terrified. Leora reached over and squeezed his hand.
You don't have to be scared, she murmured. I'm not scared. I don't know what I am. He looked up at her.
What if I'm a bad king? Then you'll learn. Make mistakes. Apologize. Try again. She smiled. Just like everyone else. But everyone else doesn't have a kingdom depending on them. No. But you'll have us. Your father, me, your new brother or sister, Sarah, Garrett, an entire support system. Leora's voice was gentle. You won't do this alone. None of us do anything alone anymore. Kael nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. I know you can. The meeting concluded with more congratulations, more well wishes. When they finally returned to their private chambers, all three of them collapsed onto the furniture in exhausted relief. That went well, Ronan said. Define well, Leora countered. Half of them looked like they wanted to object. But they didn't. That's progress, Kael yawned hugely.
Can I go to bed now? All that politics made me tired.
Go.
Ronan ruffled his hair. We'll see you in the morning.
The boy departed, leaving them alone. He's going to be a good king, Leora said. He's going to be a great king, because he has time to learn, because we're not forcing him into it before he's ready. Ronan pulled her close. And because he has you teaching him that leadership means service, not power. I don't know if I'm teaching him anything. Mostly I'm just trying not to mess up too badly. That's all any of us are doing. He kissed the top of her head. But you're doing it better than most. Leora let herself relax into his embrace, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. 6 months ago, she'd been a servant accused of murder. Now she was a queen carrying an heir. The transformation was impossible, absurd, and somehow exactly right. I love you, she said. Simple words, true ones. I love you too. Ronan's arms tightened. Thank you. For what? For saving my life, for saving my son, for saving me from myself. His voice was rough with emotion. For being brave enough to stay when leaving would have been easier. Leaving you would never have been easier. Liar. Okay, maybe a little easier, but nowhere near as worthwhile. She pulled back to look at him. We're building something good here. Something that matters. I want to see it through. Then we'll see it through together. They stood there in their chambers, holding each other as the castle settled into night around them. Outside, Arkenfell stretched toward the horizon, a kingdom in transformation, led by an unlikely pair who'd learned that trust was stronger than walls. And in the morning, they'd wake and continue the work. Continue building, continue choosing each other and the family they'd constructed from impossible circumstances. Continue proving that sometimes the dangerous ladies of the world don't just save kings. Sometimes they save kingdoms. And sometimes they save themselves,